A very good morning to you. Many thanks for joining us this morning right here on KUTV right today. Specifically, Biashara Tuesday, a show that keeps you informed on everything business, entrepreneurship, whether you're a seasoned investor or you are just starting out. It is time for you to get empowered on everything business. And of course, we also have it joined with the state of our nation, and this is in discussion of everything that is shaping your world, because how better can you move on in your business if you don't know the business environment, and that is politics, or if not politics, governance, which essentially is basic for your business. My name is Anyango Sylvia, and welcome to Biashara Tuesday on this 17th day. Today, a lot has been happening in the country, of course, over the weekend. And as the week began, we are on Tuesday, so the week began, some say it on Sunday, some say on Monday, but throughout, for the last 7 days, a lot has been happening in the country, in the world of politics, in the world of business, in the world of health, and most recently, it's now political parties or leaders embarking on their political rallies, and that is getting intensely hot in the country. So we are about to be informing you on everything that has been happening, of course, on news updates for the last 24 hours or 36 hours for that matter, what has been happening in the country. But at this point, because we shall be having a conversation on the state of the nation, where we'll be joined by very own Ojwang Mariam, the incoming MCA or aspirant or hopeful, according to how you'd wish to term it, that is Kawa West. And of course, we'll also be joined by very own Blue Smile Hassan for the discussion on the same. And we shall be taking a look at the local dailies, and just to set us off on what we are going to be talking about this morning on the state of our nation on different newspaper. We have Taifa Leo, where they are talking of Ruto Magharibi kuvuruga upinzani, and this is in relation to the development tour that is currently happening in the western region of the country, where President Ruto is launching or will be continuing the launch of several development projects in the region, and that is of course in relation to the several rallies that are going to be happening, and they're going to be proceeding on. At the same time, the opposition has vowed that President William Ruto will not sleep, and kwa maneno ya Gachagua amesema kwamba Ruto hatalala hadi wakati atarudi Sugoi 15 months from now, and that is something that the opposition are keen on. That is on Taifa Leo, and other stories given prominence on Taifa Leo includes Biashara sasa zanoga huku Eid ikikaribia. We are on the final week of Ramadan, and another story, ugonjwa wa ajabu uliolemaza vizazi vitatu vya familia. Katika siasa wanazungumzia Wanga, Ayako na Orengo hawapumui, and this is just in relation to the ODM politics and the division within the ODM party. That is on Taifa Leo. Other stories on Taifa Leo, they're talking of Australia na Japan zakataa kusaidia Trump. Kwenye sport wasema Chelsea, Man City waomba muujiza UEFA. That is on Taifa Leo. Moving on to a different newspaper this morning, we have the Daily Nation, and of course the Daily Nation today, they are talking, they're being scandalous. They're talking of the 2.1 billion schools bursary scandal, and this is in relation to, ghost learners in schools and all that. They're talking of corruption. Some constituencies were unable to account for 2.1 billion in school bursary awards for 1 year following an audit that found the scheme riddled with irregularities. The audit exposed favorism and political patronage in the allocation of the funds, locking out bright but needy students. That is on the Daily Nation. More on the story, you can get the newspaper. And another story, they are talking of what transpired yesterday, where traders suffer heavy losses as fire destroys city's toy market. And this is something that has been happening in the country for quite some time, where we have several markets being torched by fire, and that includes Gikomba, which has also been notorious on the same. Still on the Daily Nation, in terms of politics, they're talking of Ruto storms Western Gusii next to counter force. Another story on devolution, they're talking of counties splash 160 billion on parks but little for growth. Counties spent only 32 billion on development in the first 6 months of 2025-2026 financial year. And in health, they're talking of State House wades into Nairobi's hospital crisis. That has been ongoing in the country, considering the arrest that we witnessed yesterday right here in the capital, and that has been given prominence also on the Daily Nation. The Financial Standard, they're talking of KPC's future billions tied to crude oil export plan. And remember that after the shares of KPC were introduced on Nairobi Securities Exchange, it is expected that the prices of the shares are going to be rising higher and higher. And this is in relation, the proceeds are expected to be coming from crude oil exports within the region and across our borders. That is, for that matter, that is on the Financial Standard. Moving on to Business Daily, they are talking of how Nairobi Hospital board fights triggered a 2.2 billion loss. And this is in relation still what I've mentioned on the Daily Nation, what has been mentioned and what has been going on, where directors are accused of going home with up to 3.2 million Kenyan shillings and a total of 2.2 billion. And still in relation to this story, remember the president is currently the patron of the hospital. So in as much as we want to politicize the issue, he is legally responsible for that, or he can meddle in the business of the hospital. And now the fear that he wants to own the hospital is really not an issue of concern, because the hospital is not run on shares basis, but is run as a liability company for that matter. That story is given prominence on the Business Daily. Still on the Business Daily, they're talking of state starts Saiton assets auction to recover investors 1 billion shillings. Still on the Business Daily, amid a geopolitical firestorm in the Middle East, are investors being complacent or just savvy? Still on the Business Daily, they're talking of vegetable export earnings fall by 68% on Eastern Union pesticide rules. And still on the same, banks forex income hit by US dollar surplus. Those are the stories given prominence on the front page of the Business Daily. Moving on to a different newspaper this morning is the People Daily, which they're talking of the long-standing KUTV Secretary General, that is Francis Atwoli. They're talking of King of KUTV, how one man has managed to dominate Kenya's top labor movement. And this year marks the 6th year. And everybody has been saying Atwoli Tosha for the past 16 years that the KUTV has seen elections in the country. Another story on the People Daily, they're talking of floods. State issues risk alert, names danger spots as death toll rises. And remember on the same, following the joint committee meeting that is between the Nairobi County government and of course with the national government. Remember what really raised outrage in the last, I think 3 weeks ago, of the partnership between Nairobi County and the national government of co-running Nairobi County. Now, a deliberation that was meant from yesterday's meeting is that people from living in riparian land are going to be evacuated. Those living along the riverbanks are going to be evacuated, and the houses that are built along those areas are going to be demolished. That is according to Nairobi County Governor Johnson Sakaja. And of course, still on the same, there are those who are accusing the government of, not the government, the county government. They're telling the county government that it should focus on desilting the rivers rather than evacuating those around the rivers, because they consider waste and blockages on these rivers to be the leading cause of, overflown rivers and overflown capital. Still on the Business Daily, another story, they're talking of silent threats of surging youth TB cases, growing calls for sensitization. That is on the Business Daily. The Star this morning, they're talking of default shocker as 563,000 graduates all help 90 billion Kenyan shillings. And most of us are really falling on these statistics. And last year we had a report also revealing that the people who are defaulting mostly on the help repayment are lawyers, engineers, and was it doctors or nurses? Those are the highest defaulters on the help fund. And right now, that is accounting to 90 billion Kenyan shillings. And you know, when this statistics is given, that means that those who are currently in campus, those who are supposed to be benefiting from the help, they're not going to be getting that, because this is a cycle from repayment that allows those who are borrowing right now, or those who are eligible right now, to be getting the loans. But if they're not paid, that means that those who are currently in school may not be able to get the funds. And you know what that means? In the next academic year, probably you'll be having students on strike along the anniversary towers with claims that the help has not been disbursed. And that is an alarm that has been raised. And on the varsity crisis, they are talking of 563,949 borrowers in default, 89.9 billion Kenyan shillings unpaid loans, 77% of matured accounts not serviced, and 33 billion funding shortfall, and that accounts to 100,000 students who are at risk of missing help support. That is the statistics given. And in terms of aging band, 0 to 5 years, that accounts to around 281,459, and more than 35 years of defaults, that accounts to 13,881. And right now, if you're looking for employment, your employer will ask you of your help status, and that will be sent to your HR. It will be deducted automatically. And finally, looking at MyGov, they are talking of SEA to host 500 billion nuclear plant. That is something that has really not been popular among those who are keen on the health status of the people who are living around that area. And of course, also talking of why this is happening, or why the government is allowing this. And according to the Nuclear Power and Energy Agency and the Kenya Electricity Generating Company, the project is currently scheduled for groundbreaking in March 1st, 2027, marking a significant milestone in Kenya's quest to diversify its mix with high capacity, carbon neutral baseload power. That is on MyGov. Another story given prominence there is CS urges varsities to brace for CBE student upsurge in 2029. And an alarm has been raised that most universities are not ready to absorb these learners in their curriculum. Still on education, on MyGov, they're talking of 67,189 sets as annual free for TVET courses across Kenya. And you know, MyGov is a pullout on the Star. So if you want to read more on the same, you can get the Star. On Tuesday is free, so you can get the pullout from the Star. Let me begin with The Guardian. And this is a Tanzania newspaper. Their main headline there today is National Park to add nature sports. That is, they're saying that the ministry also focusing on rhinos and wild dogs. Remember, we have also been keen on having tourism conversations right here on Biashara Tuesday. That is given prominence on The Guardian. That is a Tanzania newspaper. Another story, they're talking of Mwanza High Court panel convicts 6 for terrorism. And they're talking of also the 100 days. Zanzibar lines up 45 projects worth 218 million, that is dollars. And also experts saying that most Tanzanian teens have few work skills and life tools. And I think that's a crisis that cuts across the region. Looking at a different newspaper, that is the Daily News. They're talking of mining reforms yield 5.8 trillion, and that is a Ugandan newspaper. And they're also talking of Nchimbi to grace the 5th anniversary of Magufuli's, not Uganda, still on Tanzania, on Magufuli's death. On Zanzibar leo, they're talking of Daktari Mwinyi ataka amani iliyopo nchini iendelezwe, aimiza maadili ya dini yadumishwe. That is on Zanzibar leo. Still on the same newspaper, they're talking of mradi ya dola bilioni 6.9 yasajiliwa siku 100 za Daktari Mwinyi. That is on the Zanzibar newspaper, Zanzibar leo. In Rwanda, their newspaper is the New Times, and headline given prominence there is what business community expects from the new PSF leaders. That is in Rwanda. And moving forward to Majira, they are talking of serikali kupitia TNBC yajidhabiti kikamilifu. That is also across our borders. Another headline on a different newspaper, Habari Leo, they're talking of mikoa sasa yabanwa bajeti bajeti madawati vyo. And they're talking of Mwigulu atoa miezi 6 aelekeza walioiba mabati ya milioni ya milita 200 wakamatwe. That is also of news in our region. And moving to Uganda, they're talking of USCE, top schools in sciences and arts. That is on Uganda's newspaper. And also General Muhoozi meets Ethiopian ambassador to Uganda. That is a headline in Uganda. Those among the newspaper that you are having this morning of different countries or different jumuiya tofauti za Afrika Mashariki. That is on the newspaper update this morning. And at this point, I want us to take a look at what is happening on the roads, and of course also the weather situation according to the weatherman. Exactly 33 minutes past 7 a.m. and I'm looking at different tributaries leading to Nairobi Central Business District. The situation is not quite appealing to the eye, because if I look at areas around Village Market to Rivers, those who will be using that route around Village Market to Rivers going to town, you're going to be staying on that route for quite some time. Wale wanatoka Kitsuru, you're going to be staying on the road for quite some time. Wale wanatoka Kangemi, you're also going to be staying on that route for quite some time. Wale wanatoka Riruta around Naivas, that is around the Junction Mall. If you're using those routes, if you're using that route, you're going to be staying on the road for quite some time, especially around the Junction Mall. You're going to be staying over there for quite some time. Wala wanatoka kule juu Lang'ata wakipita through Galleria Mall, around Galleria Mall, you're going to be staying on that road for quite some time. And of course, those are the people joining going to Nairobi Central Business from around those areas. Wala wanatoka Kibra, Milimani, Lavington, that is around the Quickmart Kilimani Junction, that is along the Ngong Road. You're going to be staying on that road for quite some time as well. And also those who are coming from around Nairobi Hospital, around those areas, around those junction, you're going to be staying on that route for quite some time. That is around Mbagathi Road. You're going to be staying on that road for quite some time. So wale wanatumia Ngong Road this morning, brace yourself for a very not so long, but you're going to be staying, or the traffic is moving quite slow. And also those joining Nairobi's not Nairobi Expressway, Mombasa Road, any tributary that joins to Nairobi Mombasa Road, that is those using State Out Road around Nairobi University, those coming from areas around Uhuru Park, those roads, you're going to be staying on the road for quite some time. Wale wanaingia, generally, if you're coming from the upper part of Kilimani, all those routes, and you're joining Mombasa Road to get to Nairobi Central Business District, all those tributaries, you're going to be staying on those junction for quite some time. And this, of course, is affecting those coming from around Nyayo, joining to Mombasa Road. You're going to be staying on the road for quite some time. Also those joining through around railways, you're going to be staying on the road for quite some time. And also this other side of town, the eastern side of the city, I'm seeing traffic not so heavy, but areas around Makadara, Jogoo Road, if you're using those roads along the stages of the roads, you're going to be staying on the road for quite some time. And today is not a good day for those using the eastern bypass. A lot wanatoka Utawala. The traffic is so heavy, so if you can avoid Utawala, if you can avoid the eastern bypass, good for you. So if you can get through the is it Jogoo Road? Yes, if you can use that and get to town through that route, quite that's good for you. And those using the outer ring road, if you can find your way through Jogoo Road and avoid going to the eastern bypass, well and good for you. But if you must use the Thika Road, you're also going to be staying on the road for quite some time, because from Allsops all the way to Pangani interchange, the traffic is quite heavy. And this is in relation to the diversion along the Globe roundabout. You know, there is a bridge that is being constructed there. So everyone is using this other road that most of you are always calling it the Dynasty Road, along the tunnel. So everyone is going through the tunnel towards the parklands along those side. So if you're using Thika Road and you'll be entering town along that area, you're going to be staying on the road for quite some time. And this is also affecting those coming from Kiambu Road, because kila mtu ana divert anaenda through parklands, finding their way through Nairobi Central Business District. And that's the reason why also along Mombasa Road, you're also going to be finding traffic along Mombasa Road, because kila mtu anazunguka through the museum, joining through Mombasa Road and finding their way to Nairobi Central Business District. So if you're using those routes, you're going to be staying on the road for quite some time. That is on the traffic update as of 7:39 a.m. This morning on this 17th day of March 2026. Looking at the weather outlook for the next 7 days, that is according to the Kenya Met Department, that is from on this third week of March 2026. The rainfall outlook, Kenya Met says that rainfall is expected to continue over several parts of the country, particularly in the highlands west of the Rift Valley, the Lake Victoria Basin, the Rift Valley, the highlands east of the Rift Valley, including Nairobi County, and the southern lowlands. And of course, that includes the coastal region, and some parts of the northeastern region may also receive rainfall. And on isolated storms, they're likely over the parts of the south coast, the Mount Kenya region, West Kenya, and of course the Lake Victoria Basin. That is on the weather outlook or on the rainfall outlook for the next 7 days. In terms of temperatures, they're talking of dry and sunny areas which are on the parts of the eastern and northwestern Kenya, which are likely to remain mostly sunny and dry, although occasional rainfall cannot be ruled out. And daytime temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius are expected in several areas, including the coast, northeastern and northwestern Kenya. Nighttime temperatures below 10 degrees Celsius are likely to be experienced in highlands east of the Rift Valley, Central Rift Valley, parts of the North Rift, and areas near Mount Kilimanjaro. That is on the weather outlook for the next 7 days. And just to mention the weather around the coastal region, which was also given here, that the sea conditions are slight to moderate sea conditions with wave heights of 0.2 to 1.6 meters expected over Somalia, Kenya, and Tanzania waters throughout the forecast period, and light breeze to fresh breeze with wind speeds of 0.5 to 9 meters per second, that is 1 to 18 knots expected in Somalia, Kenya, and Tanzania waters throughout the forecast period. So rainfall is still expected in most parts of the country for the next 7 days. That is according to the Kenya Met Department. If you're keen on your specific area, you can always visit their website or check on their pages on the focus on your specific area. That is on the weather update as of 7:41 a.m. right here on Biashara Tuesday. All right, now I promised you earlier that you're going to be informing you on what has been happening in the country for the last 36 hours. But before we get into that, I want us to take a very short break, then we'll be back with the news.
Hapo kwa Sayuni Referral Hospital na hapa hatufanyi mchezo, hapa ni experts peke yake. I'm telling you, this hospital is not what you think. Unamuumiza bana, wacha. Watu wewe ni nini baya wewe? Bongo mesado na urujobi. Our people united shall never be defeated.
Msana lugha. Lugha ni zaidi ya maneno. Ndio maana sisi Waswahili kila siku tunaitumia kazini, mitaani, kwenye mapenzi na katika jamii. Jiunge nami Padironga kila Jumapili katika Mawimbi ya Lugha, tukichambua Kiswahili kwa undani, maana yake, mabadiliko yake na nafasi yake katika maisha yetu. Kutoka utambulisho, mapenzi hadi mustakabali wa lugha yetu. Mawimbi ya Lugha kila Jumapili, usikose saa 2.
Kaka mtazamaji popote ulipo, unapokuwa ukitazama Safina Show
inang'oa nanga sasa hivi. Ungana nami Albanas Mwania, nahodha wa Safina Show, nikutoe ng'ambo ya pili hadi ufuoni. Safina Show, sauti ya matumaini.
Welcome back, and right now it's time to get you updated on news. To set us off with this news, a court has released Nairobi Hospital Board Chair Dr. Job Obwaka and 3 co-accused on 5 million personal bond. The Nairobi Hospital senior officials were on Monday presented before the Milimani Law Courts following their controversial arrest over allegations of falsifying the hospital's membership register. The arrests of the senior figures have sparked concern within the medical and legal fraternity amid claims of power struggle for control of the multi-billion shilling facility. Patricia Alex opens our bulletin this morning with full details.
The Nairobi Hospital senior officials Dr. Job Obwaka, Samson Kinyanjui, Valerie Gaya, and former board chair Chris Bichange were arraigned at the Milimani Law Courts after spending the weekend in police custody. According to investigations from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, the officials are accused of falsifying the membership register of Kenya Hospital Association, the body that owns and managed the Nairobi Hospital. Detectives claimed that alleged alterations were intended to influence the hospital's governance and board composition. Opposition leaders have weighed into the matter, alleging that the arrest could be politically motivated. They claim the dispute is linked to plans by the government of President William Ruto to privatize the hospital, and that the officials were detained after allegedly refusing to sign documents that were related to the process.
Medical business. Saa hii anajenga, anataka kuchukua Nairobi Hospital. Ile hospitali ya kifahari. Jana, all the board members of Nairobi Hospital wamekamatwa. Wamekuwa wakisukumwa wabadilishe sheria ndio Kasongo achukue Nairobi Hospital, wakakataa. So polisi wametumika, wamekuwa rounded up wote. Wamefunguliwa different police stations, watashtakiwa kesho na mashtaka ya uongo.
Their lawyers protested the manner of the arrest, arguing that the officials already had anticipatory bail and should not have been detained. At one point Monday morning, the suspects remained inside a police vehicle in the court parking area as defense. Lawyers demanded they be presented before a magistrate. The Nairobi Hospital officials have taken the upper hand at the Milimani Law Courts. Only time will tell according to the court's findings. Patricia Alex for KUTV, Nairobi Hospital.
Thank you, Patricia. Now moving on, President William Ruto has yet again criticized the opposition, accusing it of lacking a clear agenda and fueling division among Kenyans. Speaking in Budalangi area in Busia County, Ruto defended the political cooperation between the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, party and the ruling administration, stating that the partnership aims at forming an inclusive government while promoting government development projects. Raja Juma reports.
CP party and former deputy alongside Kalonzo Musyoka, Fred Matiang'i and Justin Muturi has continued to receive sharp criticism from President Ruto.
Siasa ya Kenya imebadilika. Unajua kuna watu wamechelewa na akili ya zamani. Kuna watu wanafikiria ya kwamba matusi na kuitana majina na mambo ya fitina na mambo ya sarakasi na mambo ya ukabila ati inaweza kupeleka Kenya mahali popote. Mimi nawauliza watu wa Budalangi, fitina inaweza kupeleka Kenya mahali popote? Vitimbi inaweza kupeleka Kenya mahali popote? Siasa chafu ya kuitana majina inaweza kupeleka Kenya mahali popote? Munasema fitina hatutaki. Mambo ya ukabila hatutaki. Mambo ya ubaguzi hatutaki. Tunataka tushirikiane.
The president, who toured Budalangi while launching several government projects, strongly criticized the opposition coalition for what he termed as lack of a clear agenda for Kenyans and the spread of insults and political antics against his administration.
Mimi niwaulize, wale watu wanajifanya sijui United nini? Nyinyi mumesikia hawa watu wanazungumza mambo ya fitina, mambo ya sarakasi, mambo ya matusi, sijui Ruto hii, sijui Ruto ile, sijui Ruto ile. Mimi nataka niwaambie, Ruto ni mtu mmoja. Kenya hii iko na Wakenya milioni 56. Hawa Wakenya wanataka watoto wao wasome, wanataka watoto wao wapate kazi, wanataka hospitali ifanye kazi, wanataka barabara itengenezwe. Nyinyi wachana na jina ya William Ruto. Hawa Wakenya wanataka kujua sera yenu ni gani.
Ruto also called on Kenyans to remain united and defended the partnership between ODM and UDA, insisting that the cooperation serves the interest of Kenyans and that he will not allow the opposition to divide the country.
Na wauliza tuungane, tushirikiane, na ndio sababu hiyo mimi nilikubaliana na Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga ya kwamba tuunganishe kwa mpango wa broad based, serikali ya UDA tuunganishe na ODM, tutengeneze serikali ya broad based, ndio tuunganishe Wakenya wote waweze kutembea pamoja. Nasema tuendelee tuungane. Ndio tumekubaliana, chama ya UDA, chama ya ODM, broad based, sisi tuko pamoja.
Later, Ruto visited the Nasewa industrial area where he launched the construction of about 2,000 affordable housing units before proceeding to Kakamega County, where he commissioned an electricity connectivity project for residents of Malaha.
Tujenge Nasewa.
The president is expected to visit Busia County again on Wednesday, where he will launch the construction of the Busia National Stadium. Rajab Juma, KUTV.
All right, now still on politics, the united opposition has continued to pile pressure on President William Ruto's government. While attending the burial of Kiambu Senator's mother, the leaders called out President William Ruto for facilitating the arrest of Nairobi hospital officials, stating that the Kenya Kwanza government is on a mission to take over the control of Nairobi hospital. Led by DCP party leader Rigathi Gachagua, the opposition insisted on transparency on the matter as investigations continue into the allegation of falsifying documents.
And William Ruto, wewe umezoea uongo. Can you make up your mind why you betrayed Rigathi Gachagua at the mountain? Because you keep on giving reasons, different reasons every day depending on where you are. Siku ulitaka kunifukuza, uliita wakalejini, ukaambia ati nataka kupindua serikali yako tukiwa na Gen Z. Ukaita wabunge ya mlima, ukaambia naitisha wewe bilioni 10 kuliko unipatie, wacha ugawie. Ukakaka ukalizwa na wazungu, iko shida gani? Ukasema I'm divisive. Ukatafuta watu ya Raila, ukaambia hii mtu ni mkabila, anaitisha shares ya mlima, ndio mmekosa shares. Mkinisaidia kumfukuza utapata shares yenu. Leo unasema sisi ni wezi. Can you make up your mind as to why you betrayed Rigiji and the mountain people? Make up your mind. How much is enough, William Ruto? Just how much is enough? Unataka pesa ngapi? Lakini uzuri hata akiwa na hiyo pesa yote halali. Si umeona amekonda mpaka masikio imekuja juu? Mumeona? Hii mtu ako na mabilioni ya pesa, lakini
kwa niaba ya familia ya Jirongo kwamba 2 weeks before Jirongo alikufa alikuwa amesign consent ya ile shamba ya Ruai. So we want to ask the president, you must be accountable. Hawezi kuwa unachukua viongozi wetu wanaenda na unawazika within 72 hours.
Alitembea kila pahali, tumekuwa sekta ya uchukuzi. Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, tulienda kotini kusimamisha na Kalonzo, sasa amerudi kule anarudisha Adani.
Na nikwambie Kasongo, hapa naita watu wezi. Mambo ya wizi ikiongewa Kenya, hakuna mtu ajui mwizi mkuu Kenya ni nani.
All right, it looks like one of the skills for you to be a good politician, you have to be a comedian. Anyway, moving on matters politics and news. The Orange Democratic Movement leadership in Kilifi County, led by Kilifi Governor Gideon Mung'aro and Senator Stewart Madzayo, has vowed to protect the interest of party members and supporters in the broad-based government arrangement. Mung'aro stated that ODM will back President William Ruto's re-election when he met with over 600 candidates vying for different political seats in the 2027 national elections.
Kama Kilifi County, nikiwa kiongozi wenu, tumekubaliana, najua hata kwa chama kuna wale ni pro ODM, ni pro Belfast, na kuna wengine kidogo bado wanayumba yumba. Lakini sasa kama sisi kama Kilifi tumesema tuko kwa broad based government, si ndio? Sisi tumekubaliana. Wangapi wanasema tutakuwa broad based government ndio?
Ile kamati yetu ya broad based kule, mimi nikiwa ndani kama mmoja wa wale watu kule ndani, nitahakikisha haki ya mtu wa ODM hapa haitalala hata kidogo.
Unataka tutoke na mlangoni ambao tumeingia nao tukaingia na dirishani, ama mnatakaje? Kwa sababu hawa wote hata wale wanazunguka wakitangaza ile upinzani wanataka kuunda nini?
Serikali.
Wanataka kuunda nini?
Serikali.
Na sisi tayari tuko kwa serikali ya muungano ndani. Sasa nataka tutoke, alafu na hawa jamaa sidanganya, acha niwaambie. Hawa jamaa wote wanapiga kelele. Sasa ile wataanza kupigana, tukizubaa kama chama tutakuta hao kwa meza, sisi ndio tumeanza kutafuta dirisha ya kuingilia.
All right, now moving on to disturbing news, right, in Kiambu County, the Juja-based traditional group Mhiriga Kenda has denied being involved in the carrying out of female genital mutilation, that is FGM, which the government has outlawed. The group, headed by Mutumbi Mwangi and Kamau Kirigi, denied allegations that they have mutilated female members, including school-age children, pointing out that this is a myth that has been spread for a long time in an attempt to discredit and defame the group. They spoke following a raid by authorities on their temple in Juja, Kiambu County, on Saturday due to allegations that the organization is a criminal cult and has been engaging in the prohibited activity. Numerous members of the group were taken into custody. The group also refuted claims that they have been operating as a criminal sect affiliated with the outlawed Mungiki sect.
Wanafuata utamaduni yenye tuliachiwa na baba yetu Gikuyu na mama yetu Mombi. Hiyo ndio tunafuata. Kwa hivyo ndio maana tunasema serikali tunamuomba sisi tuachiliwe, tuendelee na utamaduni wetu. Jo, sisi hiyo ndio tunajua. Tunapendekeza kama Mhiriga Kenda, serikali itupatie uhuru kama venye wamepatia kanisa. Kama ni Mkorino asubuliwe na kileba yake, kama ni mwenye aenda Catholic asubuliwe na rodhario yake. Hata sisi venye tunafuata utamaduni yetu, hata tu serikali ituachilie tu, si tuendelee na kufuata utamaduni. Serikali iwezi tufuata ili hali ni yeye mwenyewe ametupatia nini? Cheti. Ile kitu tunafanya yote iko registered, na hatufanyi kitu usiku, tunafanya mchana. Kama hiyo unasikia, hao watu they were invited to come and see what we do. Unashindwa hao watu kwa nini wamepindua hiyo kitu? Wanasema wao ndio wamekuja atikuvamia. Walikuwa wameambiwa wakuje wakati kila mtu wako wajione, bila kuambiwa wajione. Wakaja wakasema wamefunga na wakashika watu. Aende kwa obi zake zote aseme alishika mtu ako na hii, mtu mmoja atoke hapa aende kwa clubs zote, clubs usiku, social clubs zenye unaenda huko utupatie mmoja, ama utoke hapo uende kwa lodging utuambie umekuta huyu akiwa kwa lodging. Sasa hatuna kesi kama hiyo.
right, now on matters climate, heavy rains pounding Nairobi have triggered flooding in several parts of the city, leaving families displaced and property destroyed as traders in the worst hit areas are now counting losses. Ateng Kanagunda reports on a day authorities have issued warning that continued rainfall could worsen the situation, raising concerns over drainage systems and disaster preparedness.
Following the ongoing heavy rainfalls, traders in flood-affected areas in Nairobi County are counting heavy losses after rising water swept through markets and business premises due to the ongoing flood crisis caused by heavy rains in the country. According to the traders, their business have been severely disrupted as flood water swept through stalls and shops, destroying goods and equipments that many depend on for their daily income.
Ni ajali imetokea ya maji, hiyo mvua venye imenyesha imetuaffect sana. Inafaa tuangaliwe kama sisi. Unaona Busonga, Songa. Unaona kama hii area yote ilikuwa imejaa maji. Hii area yote ilikuwa imejaa maji mpaka huko kwa barabara huko watu wakupita kwenda nyumbani. Inafaa serikali uangalie tusaidie kwanza hizi mitaro zichimbwe. Mitaro zimefunga. Ni mitaro kwanza ndio ziko na shida sana mitaro. Mitaro zimefunga. Ilinyesha last Friday. Ikazuia watu kwenda nyumbani na ikaharibu kazi za watu. Kuna watu yuko kazi saa hii. Kazi tuko kazi lakini bado kazi nyingine imeenda.
Some traders say they were forced to watch helplessly as the water carried away merchandise, while others struggled to save what they could as the flood forced several businesses to temporarily shut down, affecting the supply of goods and services in the area.
Ilianza tu kigafra. Maji ikakuja ikakuwa mingi. Serikali mimi naomba atengeneze njia maji kwa ikienda. Sinaenda kwa barabara, nazuia magari. Magari zilikuwa zimejaa maji kuanzia pale chini. Kuza hivi juu hakuwa napita watu. Tu walikuwa najiangalia kwa umbali.
Traders are now appealing to the government and local authorities for urgent intervention, including financial assistance and support to repair damaged market infrastructure.
Wafungue drainage tuache kuteseka hii Nairobi. Hii kidogo tunateseka. Wafungue drainage maji ya Nairobi na huko nini Kibera. Yote unajua sasa maji kibungana
Residents are now calling on government to intervene during this flood crisis caused by heavy rainfall in the country. Ateng Kanagunda, KUTV, Nairobi.
Thank you, Kanagunda. Still on the same, Machakos County Executive Committee member Nathaniel Nganga has stated that the deaths of 69 Kenyans who perished following floods in the country could have been avoided if the national and county governments had put in place advanced flood preparedness measures. According to Nganga, early flood preparedness in Machakos County has helped to prevent fatalities, unlike in previous years, especially in areas like Mavoko and Tala. Nganga urged county governments to prepare early to tackle floods, especially in counties that are heavily affected by heavy rains.
If counties would be more prepared, of course, together with the national government, it will be easy to save the lives of more people. I was seeing that by now we have lost around 69 lives across the country. One life lost is one far too many. No life deserves to be lost because of something that is uncontained as government. I encourage my colleagues across the country that we take this matter seriously and save the lives of Kenya. We were not very affected in terms of the flooding, because number one, tumefanya rampant solid waste management plan. Tumezoa taka sana. Eneo zetu za Mlolongo, za River, Machakos, Tala, eneo yetu ya kule Joska.
Now, in efforts to ensure both the well-off and the less fortunate share in the spirit of the holy month of Ramadan and preparations for the Eid celebrations, About 1,500 vulnerable families in Mombasa have benefited from a food distribution exercise organized by the Mombasa Somali Community Association at Mbaraki Grounds in Mombasa County, as Rajab Juma now reports.
The holy month of Ramadan is a time when the Muslim community dedicates itself to performing good deeds in pursuit of blessings from God. Today, about 1,500 families in Mombasa benefited from a food distribution exercise aimed at easing the burden of fasting households.
Today we are starting distribution of food packages for vulnerable people in Mombasa County. Our target is to reach to 1,500 families. This will going to take them the few days of Ramadan and also Eid celebration. We are thankful for our sponsors of this particular food donation.
Speaking during the event, the treasurer of the Mombasa Somali Community Association, Ibrahim Mohammed, said the initiative targets vulnerable families across Mombasa and is intended to help them sustain themselves during the remaining days of Ramadan.
Ni chakula ambaye inasaidia familia kwa muda. Kuna sukari kilo 3, itasaidia kwa muda, na kitu ambacho tunafanya kama mwaka 2 sasa, na inshallah mwaka ujao tutajaribu wenzetu ambao wanasaidia tuongezee donation, na tunajaribu kufikisha watu kama 3,000 target yetu vile iko vile. Sasa tunaona hesabu ni familia ya kama 1,500.
According to the Association Secretary General Abdi Dirie, each beneficiary received a comprehensive food package designed to support families during the fasting period and help them through the remaining days of Ramadan.
Na hii inaonyesha kwamba kwa idadi kubwa itasaidia wale ambao wajiwezi, na tunahimiza Waislamu wote ambao wanaishi Mombasa na Kenya kwa jumla waangalie mfano huu mzuri kusaidia jamii.
As the Muslim community around the world prepares to conclude the holy month of Ramadan later this week, a call has been made for communities to emulate such initiatives by organizing similar activities to support the less fortunate within their societies. Rajab Juma, KUTV.
And in education, parents in Mombasa County have been urged to work closely with teachers by actively monitoring their children's academic progress to improve examination performance in Changamwe constituency, Mombasa County, and help secure a better future while breaking the cycle of poverty. Mombasa Governor Abdul Somad Nasir commended the support of National Government Constituencies Development Fund, that is NGCDF, in ensuring education remains accessible to children in Mombasa. He revealed that the County Assembly had passed the supplementary budget and that 40 million Kenyan shillings in fees owed to private schools will be settled.
Tutawasponsor tuende Makueni, tuende tuone results zile zinatoka namna gani, na kwa nini sisi hatuwezi na sisi tuweza. Nawaambia sisi we are a product of Mombasa, na sisi tumekulia Mombasa, tumesoma Mombasa na tumefanya kile kitu Mombasa, na tuliweza kutoa grade mzuri. Hata wao pia wanafunzi wetu wanaweza pia vile vile. Kitu ambacho chahitajika ni sisi wazazi tushikane pamoja, vile mmesikia hapa, tuwe katika mashule hatutoki, tujue watoto wetu wanafanya namna gani, walimu wetu tutawasaidia namna gani, na tujitahidi tulipe fees. Mimi nasikitika kwa kitu kimoja, asubuhi ukitembea unakuta watoto wanarejeshwa nyumbani, sijui ni tuition fee, sijui ni nini. This thing must stop. Remedial, vitu kama hizo. Omara, Madam Director, hebu tukaangalia hii maneno. Badala ya kumregesha mtoto asisome masomo yote kwa sababu hakulipa pesa ya remedial ya 1 hour asubuhi, that is very unfair.
Wale wa private assembly imepitisha supplementary, pesa zao zile ambao kwamba ni deni tutakuwa tunalimaliza hii wiki ambayo kwamba inaokuja, ikizidi sana wiki hiyo nyingine. Wale wa boarding ambao kwamba tulikuwa tumetoa form, lakini wafisadi wengine wakaenda kotini kusema serikali ya county isisaidie, tumemalizana na haya maneno na supplementary. Hawa waungwana hapa wamepitisha, Kwa hivyo ikizidi wiki ijayo hiyo nyingine tuwe tumemaliza deni la wale watoto wa boarding na wale wengine. Nikimaliza hapo nitatoa fomu nyingine ili wale ambao kwamba, manake hii ilikuwa ni ya mwaka jana. Kwa hivyo nitatoa fomu za mwaka huu na tutadili na ofisi ya Mheshimiwa Omar Mwinyi na ofisi za MCA hao MCA waweze kuwasaidia na pesa za watoto wa boarding. Wale watoto wa day, nisikizeni sasa. Mimi nilikaa chini na wenye mifuko ya basari. Wenye mifuko wa basari ni wabunge wote. Nikakaa chini na Mheshimiwa Omar Mwinyi na wabunge wote wa Mombasa. Nikaambia jamani, kila mmoja anatoa pesa, lakini hii pesa tukiangalia kila siku watoto wanadaiwa. Sasa mimi nikiangalia nikaona idadi kubwa inatumika kwa mambo ya chakula. Mimi nikapanga na Wizara ya Elimu, mimi kama serikali tukafanya mpango na assembly, tumechukua jukumu la kuwalisha watoto wetu wote katika shule ambazo kwamba ziko katika day. Tukiwalisha hawa watoto, serikali ya kaunti imepunguza gharama ya watoto wa day walioko katika shule za umma katika Mombasa na 12,000.
Now that brings us to the end of news update this morning. So stay tuned for much updates on what has been happening around the campus, that is Kenyatta University campus, and of course how that will empower your thinking in terms of venturing into a new business that you have not thought of, or if you are in a business that is mentioned, expanding your knowledge on the same.
Executive Officer and the leadership of Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital, our partners, our stakeholders, especially the administration, the police and MSF. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I bring you warm greetings from the Mental Health Department at Kenyatta National Hospital, the largest national referral and teaching hospital in the country. It is a privilege and honor to represent KNH, and more specifically, the head of Mental Health Department, Dr. Ian Kanyanya, on this important occasion. Allow me to particularly appreciate the leadership of Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital, under the guidance of the Chief Executive Officer, for prioritizing survivor-centered care and strengthening systems that respond to sexual and gender-based violence. Your leadership today strengthens Kenya's national response to this challenge. Mental health and trauma-informed care reminds us that responding to SGBV requires more than medical treatment. It requires understanding the profound psychological wounds survivors carry. Sexual and gender-based violence remains a major public health and social concern in Kenya. According to national surveys, about 1 in every 3 women experience physical or sexual violence in her lifetime. Behind these numbers are real people: mothers, fathers, sons and daughters, brothers, sisters, and even families whose lives are deeply affected by trauma. While physical injuries may heal, psychological scars often persist. Survivors can struggle with anxiety, depression, fear, loss of self-worth, and symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Some lose trust in relationships. Others may feel unsafe in their own homes, even in the communities. At Kenyatta National Hospital, we witness firsthand the deep psychological impact that violence has on survivors and families. These experiences remind us that effective SGBV care is not only about treatment, it is about trauma-informed care. Trauma-informed care reminds us that survivors are not defined by the violence they experienced. They are defined by their courage to seek help and by our responsibility as healthcare professionals to respond with dignity, compassion, and respect. In practice, trauma-informed care means creating environments where survivors feel safe and respected. It means listening without judgment, protecting confidentiality, and ensuring that the process of seeking care does not re-traumatize them. For a survivor of violence, the way we receive them can either reopen the wound or begin the healing. Mental health professionals play a critical role in this process. And I'm very grateful to the psychiatrist who has just spoken. Through crisis counseling, trauma therapy, and ongoing psychosocial support, we help survivors regain emotional stability, rebuild confidence, and restore hope. But trauma-informed care must be embraced by all members of healthcare system. We have the doctors, nurses, social workers, counselors, and all the other healthcare professionals, even our support staff. When the entire system understands trauma, survivors experience care that is both medical and humane. As colleagues from Kenyatta National Hospital, we deeply appreciate the commitment demonstrated by Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital in strengthening trauma-informed services for survivors. Such leadership ensures that care reaches those who need it most, and that survivors are supported every step of the way. Every survivor who walks into our hospital doors carries a story of pain. But with the right care, that story can become a story of resilience, healing, and hope. Hospitals must not only treat injuries, they must also become safe spaces where trauma is understood and healing truly begins. As I conclude, I want to say this. The courage it takes for survivors to seek help should always be met with compassion from us, all of us, professionalism, and unwavering support. As we are reminded in Psalms chapter 147, verse 3, He heals the broken-hearted and binds up their wounds. May our institutions continue to be places where broken hearts find healing, where dignity is restored, and where hope is renewed. Thank you very much. But as I conclude, I would like also to introduce myself again. As she said, my name is Salome Ndolo. I'm a medical social worker specialized in mental health. We are also called psychiatric social workers. I work in the mental health department, Kenyatta National Hospital. Thanks again.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, my name is Rebecca Ndumu, a nurse from MSF. So I can proudly tell my nurses, my fellow nurses, that we can do this. We've been doing it for the last 15 years, and we can really do it. So all the representatives here, my colleagues from MSF, KU, KNH, the police, everybody, I'm really proud to be here today. Because first of all, I'm really proud of KU staffs who have been to Lavender, because we have seen the dedication and the commitment of doing this noble work. So SGBV requires a lot of passion. So you have to be passionate about what you do, because we are dealing with patients who need a lot of hope, and so that when they come to you, they leave that room with a lot of dignity. And as MSF, we are really committed to that. We give patient-centered care, and we want our survivors to live better than they came. So it is a collaboration of every department, the mental health, the legal department, the medical department. So we work together to make everything work. So as MSF, we are really committed to this noble cause, and we really appreciate also the dedication we have seen from KU. And we are looking forward to this noble cause, and we know it will be a success. Thank you very much.
As Dr. Mutua has introduced me, I'm Dr. Caroline Gugi. I'm the Director Training, Research, Partnership and Resource Mobilization. Currently, today, I'm holding brief for our CEO, who sends her regards, and all our senior management, all the directors and the CEO are all away in Naivasha for a training. So I am here to represent all of them. So receive their regards. I think before I read the CEO's speech, is just to appreciate the team that has worked tirelessly to put this together. As I said earlier, when we were cutting the ribbon, is Dr. Mutua, when she came to our office with all these plans. These are discussions that we've had with her in MSF for more than a year. At some point, we were almost giving up. Now we're like, things, every time we go, we had a bigger dream, and we really wanted the clinic to be big, to replicate what they have at KNH. But with the leadership of our CEO and her team, she reminded us that even Rome was not built in a day. So we agreed to start where we are starting at A&E. But the dream is bigger, and we hope that as we continue, we'll find partners who are going to support us to help us achieve this. I would like to acknowledge the presence of our administrative officers, the OCS, the chief, who have really worked with us, not just in this activity. I remember the chief, we had a CSR activity the other day, and we said we are looking at ways where our community can feel us. Because what the feedback we were getting is that the community around here actually think this is a private hospital. They can't access us. So we have purposed as a hospital, and the partnership team leading this, to find ways and services that we can actually support our community. So these are some of the things we are looking at doing. This is going to support our immediate community first. And we are happy that you're here, because you can sensitize them and let them know that these services are being offered here. The police, our OCS, has also been very supportive. We are happy to note that you actually sent the appropriate person to come for this meeting. We didn't involve them in our sensitization training, which we should have, but it's an ongoing. We've had several sensitization meetings and we hope to have more. We are just starting and MSF will be coordinating with us. So we'll be inviting you. I think we didn't know that their office was there, but we'll be inviting you in our collaboration as we grow, because you have more experience than we do. We may have the doctors and the nurses, but on the ground, nini ndio muko huko. So we really appreciate your coming and we hope that we'll work together. And what I said earlier, what a better time to launch this clinic than this week when we are celebrating International Women's Day on Sunday. I say when it's my birthday, I celebrate the whole week. I start with the whole week, then I go to the whole month. If it's a milestone birthday, we celebrate the whole year. So this week I've been celebrating International Women's Day. I know it's on the 8th, but I think we chose the right time to do this. Our leadership at KUTV, I think we are mainly women, led by our CEO, who's a woman. I'm happy that this initiative was led by a lady. So we are giving back to ensure that our women, our men, all of them who are affected by sexual and gender-based violence, we can offer them compassionate care. And with that, allow me to now read the speech from the CEO. So, representative from MSF, distinguished partners and stakeholders, our administrative officers from the OCS and the chief, members of staff or invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is with great humility and deep sense of responsibility that I stand before you today to officially launch the SGBV KUTV Tumaini Clinic, which is a dedicated space for the care and support for survivors and sexual and gender-based violence victims. We gather here at a time when the need for such services is urgent and undeniable. This moment is both significant and necessary. In Kenya today, studies have shown that more than 40% of women have experienced physical or sexual violence from an intimate partner in their life. And globally and nationally, nearly 1 in 3 women is at risk of gender-based violence. These are not just statistics. They represent mothers, they represent daughters, they represent our sisters, our colleagues, our friends, and members of our communities whose life have been deeply affected by violence and trauma. Behind each number is a human story, a story of pain, a story of resilience, and often the difficult journey towards healing. It is our responsibility as healthcare providers, as institutions and partners to ensure that survivors are met, not with silence or stigma, as we have been told, but with care, with dignity, and with hope. So indeed, today marks a significant milestone in our hospital journey towards compassionate, comprehensive, and survivor-centered care for those affected by sexual and gender-based violence. Sexual and gender-based violence remains one of the most pervasive human rights violations globally and within our communities. And we know that this cuts across age, it cuts across gender, even socioeconomic status. Survivors often endure not only physical injuries, but also profound psychological trauma, stigma, and social isolation. In many instances, they struggle in silence due to fear, due to shame, or lack of access to appropriate services. So as a National Referral and Research and Training Institute, KUTV bears a duty to not only treat, but also to respond to pressing social and public health challenges with courage, with innovation, and empathy. The establishment of Tumaini Clinic is a bold and deliberate response to this call. The word Tumaini means hope, and that is exactly what this clinic represents. It gives hope to survivors, hope for dignity restored, hope for healing and justice, and hope for a society that refuses to tolerate violence. Importantly, the launch of this clinic comes at a very symbolic moment as we have the global celebration of International Women's Day on the 8th. This is a time when the world reflects on the progress made towards gender equality and renews the call to protect the right, the dignity, and safety of women and girls everywhere. So by opening our Tumaini Clinic at KUTV during this period, we reaffirm our commitment as a health institution to stand firmly against violence and to ensure that survivors receive the care, the compassion, and the support that they truly deserve. This clinic has been made possible through our valued partnership with Medicines Sans Frontiers, MSF. MSF brings global expertise, technical capacity, and vast experience in delivering quality care in complex and sensitive contexts. So together we have combined international best practices with our local understanding of community needs to create a safe, confidential, and holistic care model of survivors. And we have seen their support, as Dr. Mutua has mentioned, that quite a high number of our nurses and other technical team, including our security officers, have been trained. The Tumaini Clinic will therefore provide immediate medical care, including post-exposure prophylaxis and emergency treatment, psychosocial support and trauma-informed counseling, forensic documentation to support access to justice, linkages to legal, social, and protection services, follow-up care to ensure long-term recovery. Most importantly, the clinic has been designed to uphold the dignity, the privacy, and rights of every survivor who walks through its doors. This initiative also reflects our broader commitment as KUTV to integrate specialized services within our health system, ensuring that survivors do not face fragmented or delayed care. We are strengthening our internal capacity through staff training, standardized protocols, and multidisciplinary collaboration so that the response to SGBV is not just a project that we are coming up to do today and we are done, but a sustained institutional priority. To our staff, your compassion, your professionalism, and discretion will be the cornerstone of this clinic's success. Survivors will remember how they were treated after they leave our facility. Let us ensure that they live with dignity, they live with reassurance and renewed strength and hope. To our partners and stakeholders, today's launch is not the end, it is the beginning. Addressing sexual and gender-based violence requires collective responsibilities. It calls for prevention, it calls for awareness, it calls for community engagement and continuous advocacy. We must work together, government, healthcare providers, civil society, law enforcement, and communities. Everybody plays a part to break the cycle of violence. As we officially open or launch the SGBV KUTV Tumaini Clinic, let us all commit ourselves to building a safer, more just society where individuals, women, men, young boys, young girls can live free from violence and fear. So on behalf of KUTV, I extend my sincere appreciation to MSF for their partnership and shared vision. Together, we are not only launching a clinic, we are strengthening a lifeline. So as we mark this important moment of this week of International Women's Day on the 8th, let us remember that the protection, dignity, and empowerment of women and girls is not only a moral responsibility, but a foundation for healthier families, stronger communities, and a more just society. So I will close by mentioning that each time a woman stands up for herself without knowing it, possibly without claiming it, she stands up for all women. And that is what we have done today as KUTV leadership. Let the Tumaini Clinic stand as a place where survivors find healing, where dignity is restored, and where their hope is renewed. Thank you very much.
All right, I am understood. All right, apologies for that technical hitch. And as I was saying, that when we are seated, you know, it's about to get down on matters discussion, and today specifically on the state of a nation. But before we get into that, I want us to take a look at a recap of what transpired right here in Kenyatta University of a public lecture that brought together Kenyatta University in partnership with KCA University, where global sports science expert Yanis Pitsiladis urged for stronger scientific approaches to safeguard athletics from doping. The lecture was drawn from lessons learned from decades of research on East African runners, saying innovation and integrity remain critical to protecting clean sport globally.
Very much, MC. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. This is a good crowd, and I really like demographics such as this. Being in a university is a very good thing, because most of the time we are the older ones, but they are always young people. So there is that generation, and it's very inspiring to share forums with them, and I'm very happy to be here. Well, our chief guest, Professor Yanis, our colleague, formerly Professor Vincent Donyero, the staff from KCA, the chair and the physical education department, fellow staff members, and our students from KCA, and the students from Kenyatta University, and all other guests. Shasha, it's nice to know you could come for this. It's good to see you, I think. Good morning. Yes, I've been given a speech here which I was asked to read, but most of it, Professor Nyera has already stolen the thunder. He's gone with it, so I think I'd rather not read it. I'd rather just talk. I think, to me, what I'd like to say is that I'm expecting a very exciting talk this morning. I think sports is big, and sports is changing everything. We are literally employed by sports. Okay, and physical education. It's no longer what it was. If your doctor doesn't tell you to get fit, then he's not telling you the correct thing. Okay, your medical doctor should be the first person, and being fit is the first step in health. Being physically good, be an athlete is another thing, but just being fit alone, that's for all of us. And it's very much what happens in this place. We know now sports and athletics support a big industry. Okay, it's a big industry. You don't need to run. You could be a journalist. You could be a coach. The same event. Last night there were soccer games being played. There are almost 100 reports of that single event. It's being reported in China. 2 people are reporting in Kenya. Those are journalists making a living out of sports. So sports is great. And our home, East Africa, is renowned for not just sport, but athletics primarily. I think we could do well in other things, but normally when you are gifted in one area, it tends to dominate. So athletics has taken away all other things that we could do. It's good enough until Sasha there was in rugby, and we do well in that. At least we're very much world class. But it is athletics where we start out, and I would really wish to know why this happens. I believe there's a bit of genetics, that's true. So the physical, the phenotype and everything, but athletics still requires a lot of conditioning. To really be at the top of the game, you really need to condition yourself. So, okay, you can't do that until you have the basics. But really, I think there should be something more. I'm very happy with this, and I really look forward to listening. I'll sit through this myself. On behalf of the university, I would like to welcome you all. And I would like you to make this session as interactive as possible. Professor Yanis, from the profile I was given, is well-renowned and is quite established. Those are too many books to come from you. Are they 30 or how many are they? 30 books, not counting the publications. Okay, we'd be happy to have 30 publications, in fact. But for him, those are books. So you can see what authority we have. I really want to hear this issue from the village to the podium. So on behalf of Kenyatta University and on behalf of myself, welcome Professor Yanis and talk to us. Thank you.
Class presentation by our keynote speaker. I will introduce Professor Yanis Pisladis. Professor Yanis P. Pisladis is a professor of sport and exercise science and currently the director at the Department of Sports and Health Sciences in Hong Kong Baptist University. Professor Pisladis has an extensive research background in the role of lifestyle and genetics in human health and performance. His current work focuses on human enhancement technologies in health and disease, emphasizing responsible paradigms. His latest research, funded by the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, and the International Olympic Committee, IOC, applies omics, which stands for genomics, transcriptomics, metabolomics, and proteomics from proteins, and artificial intelligence to detecting doping in sports, particularly blood doping and testosterone use. Professor Pisladis is a member of the IOC Health, Medicine and Science Commission, previously known as Medical and Scientific Commission, which he has been participating in from 2015 to now. He is the Executive Committee and Chair of the Scientific Commission of the International Federation of Sports Medicine and the Scientific and Education Commission of the European Federation of Sports Medicine Association. He also serves on WADA's Health Medical Research Committee and is a fellow of the American College of Sports Medicine. He has over 250 scholarly and scientific publications and multiple authored and edited books. His research has influenced both scientific and popular discourse. His work has been featured in documentaries such as Kipchoge, The Last Milestone, 2021, directed by Jake Scott, the executive producer by Ridley Scott, and Enhanced 2028, directed by Alex Gibney, as well as in the best-selling books like Sports Gene and Bounce. Professor Yanis Pisladis has supervised many world-class PhD students, including grade 1 professor Vincent Onywera. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and welcome Professor Yanis Pisladis.
Okay. As Professor,
you know, how can you not be moved? Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, both universities, authorities from both universities, students. It really is, I'd even argue, one of the highlights of my career, coming back home to this university. I'll tell you more about about the story through my slides once they're up. So I won't give a long introduction because my whole slide deck that I have, and there are too many slides, is a story along the lines of what you heard from Vincent. And for the students in the room, I want you to think, when listening to Vincent, when listening to me, this notion about seize the moment. A lot of people see the trains go by and they never jump on. Vincent's story is a remarkable story, even before he started the work. I'm not going to dwell too much on his story before that email, but I will show you a copy of that email. But what's also incredibly exciting when these slides come up, I hope the team are doing well to get them up, is what he did once he got started, once he got onto the train. And as he said, he influenced so many scholars around the world, so many scholars around the world. And that's why even today, there's huge interest in what we're going to be talking about today. We also heard early on, we want this to be interactive. And as a teacher, I know that we should not have too many slides. I have too many slides, and I want the teachers in the room to forgive me for breaking the golden rule of having too many slides. And the reason is, I didn't know what to remove. Because he's done, and others in the room, others who are not present here today, have done so much. I flew in yesterday from Hong Kong via London. I did work all the way. I started off with 990 slides. We would be here for a month, wouldn't we? I went down to about 150, 160. A lot of them are photographs and videos, so don't worry. And if we don't get to the end, it doesn't really matter. The main story, the main theme is important, and that is what we were able to achieve together. So I'm using up time now because I want my first slide up. Can the technical team please sort that out if they can? It should be working. Everything should work fine, hopefully. But I do want my slides up so I can actually tell you the story. Technical team, do we have any problems? Because if I start without the slides, then I'll actually repeat myself. So, talk about, and related to that, we'll talk about genetics and the environment. In order to convince you one way or the other, we'll have to talk about culture, have to talk about diet, talk about training. Then, as I said to you, we have to talk about the doping issue and solutions. And I'm very proud that today here in this room, we will present to you the solution. And finally, I'll end up with some lessons so we can drive the field forward. So, let me get started. Now, at the time that Vincent sent me that email, what he didn't know is that every Olympic Games and World Championships, I would create a slide like this. And basically, it would show for the sprint events, but also endurance events. I'm focusing on endurance now, and I'm focusing on the Paris Olympics. I would put the faces of the athletes on a slide like this. And I have slides going right back to the Olympics, almost the start of the modern Olympics. And I can tell you what you find after the Mexico Olympics, 1968. You find that all medalists, or most medalists, in the endurance events are from East Africa. And you can see here in the most recent games, Paris 2024, the same phenomenon we see again. And don't worry too much about the flags. I'm actually going to change flags from now on in my new slides. Because you can see, for example, the winner in the women's marathon has a Dutch flag, but she's not Dutch. She's very much Ethiopian. So the flags can be deceiving. But the point is, where are the Europeans? Where are the Asians? Messaged all of us. He also knew that the world records were doing something similar. And again, I have world records every year since I began as a young PhD student. And it looks roughly the same. The names change, the countries tend to remain the same. So what Vincent didn't know when he sent me that email was that my students would ask me the same question I'm asking you. Why do these phenomena exist, both in sprint sports and endurance sports? Hence the title of some of my previous talks, White Men Can't Run. Where is the evidence? And I for the lecture today, I talked about having a 30-year summary of the last 30 years, although Vincent and I have been working really together for the last 25. And the reason I said 30 years, because I wanted to tell you what others were doing before we started. And this paper from the group in Copenhagen, Ben Salteen's group, had indeed started doing some amazing work in 1995. They were in Kenya regularly, they were in Eldoret reasonably regularly, and they were studying young Kenyan runners comparing to young Scandinavian runners. And as you can see from this slide, they would typically compare small numbers of athletes, 12, for example, from one ethnic group, 12 from the other, and then make conclusions based on their findings. And for the students of sports science in the room, I highly recommend you read these early papers. And this one in particular, where they muscle biopsied their athletes, Kenyan and Scandinavian, interestingly, they found no differences, ladies and gentlemen, no differences in the muscle of Kenyans and Scandinavian athletes, which now today doesn't surprise me at all, but that's what they found. They also, as I mentioned to you, studied a larger number of young athletes, and here the guy that's on the ground palpating the athlete, and I think it's Wilson Kipsang, not Wilson Kipsang, I'm sorry, it's the athlete that went to run for Denmark, Kipkita, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, he's palpating the lower limb. His name is Henrik Larsson. He was, in one sense, the Vincent Onyewerre of the time. He had gone to Ben Salteen supported him, and he was doing this amazing work, comparing Kenyans to Scandinavians. And basically what he found was that they had similar engine size, the aerobic capacity, the maximum was similar, but the Kenyan runners could work at a higher percentage of their maximum during competition and had a better running economy. And the way they explained, using that method you can see in this photograph, and here's the data, very brief data, you can see that length, volume, and mean thickness of the lower leg was very different between the Kenyans and the Scandinavians. Much bigger in the Danish boys, so they concluded that the difference must be down to biomechanical anthropometric differences. And here's a summary, and I'll make these slides available because I know you've been sitting here a long time, so I'm going to go a little bit faster than normal through the presentation. But you can see the top there, the conclusions. Nandi boys compared to Danish boys, at Kenyan elite runners compared to Danish elite runners. There were some suggestions there of what may be going on. This is all prior to Vincent. The year 2003 is important because that's the year Henrik Larsson from that group writes then the definitive review on why the difference. What is the reason for the Kenyan dominance? And that writing is very small, but they basically say, and I highlight the area of interest, they have the proper genes. And you can see he's being biased potentially because the phenomenon is so overwhelming. He says in addition to having the proper genes that shape their bodies, resulting in good running economy, and then he goes and talks about the other things I mentioned about the higher percentage of VO2 max, etc. But he makes a very important point that attracted my attention. And this was all before Vincent sent that email. They have the proper genes. What does that tell you? It tells you that they know they have the proper genes, because I can't look at someone and say what their genetic makeup is from the color of their skin, from how they perform. If you want to know someone has the proper genes, what do? You measure them. But we have a problem, and that's the next problem. And I'm just setting the scene for Vincent's remarkable email. Those interested in genomics in the room, and I hope after today's talk there's many, many of you, okay? The Human Genome Project, which started back in 1990, completed 2003. What does that mean? The technologies didn't exist for anyone to measure the genetics of these athletes or any athlete in the world. The technology didn't exist until 2003. So that statement, having the proper genes, became particularly interested to me, and then suddenly I get that email. So you can imagine, therefore, why for me, I didn't want to wait 2 weeks. I wanted to wait 2 hours. I wanted to be on that flight to Vincent at that point. So when I received that email, I had already designed what we were going to do. Because the human genome had finished, we now knew what we needed to do. All we had to do was go out to Africa, go out to Jamaica, go out to the different places, collect samples and measure. Now that sounds quite easy. It's very, very difficult to do, especially if you're European sitting in Glasgow in my office. And then this email comes. And obviously you already know who it's from. I wanted to make it a bit of suspense as to who this was. But, you know, and this is the Vincent I met, okay? And all of us look different with age, okay, maturity, but this is the young man that came to Glasgow, okay? And you can see, have I got interest in supervising a PhD in this area? What do you mean? Of course I have. Let's get started as soon as possible. And this email changed the roadmap for so many, as you'll see through my talk. And again, apologize if I start going faster, but I want to get to the end to convince you of that roadmap. So that was 2003, ladies and gentlemen. By 2004, and you can look at the dates, it's May of 2004, we've created an institute, a center of excellence. Okay? We've invited all the people he wrote to, we've invited to join the center now in Glasgow. And it was interesting at times, I don't know if Vincent remembers, he would speak to them. I did write to you, by the way, because at that point they're so excited by Vincent's data, because by that point he's finished his first study already. He's finished the first study. At this event, he's presenting his data, and all these professors are looking, saying, wow, where's this guy come from? Vincent, I wrote to you, you know? Seize that moment, ladies and gentlemen. And you can see at that meeting what the conclusion was. The conclusion, this was a long time ago, was established tradition role models, which I think we'll all fairly agree. Cultural practices, I remember John Manners talking about things like cattle raiding and all sorts of things which the evidence was not very strong. The economic reasons came across really, really strongly, you know, getting out of poverty, and I think that's a real big factor. High altitude, the anatomical advantages presented by the Scandinavians, and genetic advantage. These were the things put forward in 2004. And here are the founding members of that International Center of East African Running Science. On the far left, we have Colin Moran, who's an accomplished professor of sports genetics at the University of Stirling. Next to him, Vincent Oniwera. Next to him, Robert Scott. He's the one that worked closely with Vincent to do the genetics. Do you know what Robert's doing today? And actually, coincidentally, 3 months ago, there was the biggest meeting in genomics in China. And at the hotel, it was 2 different events. I'd already kept in contact with Robert, but I saw him there. Guess what he does? He works for Cambridge, the University of Cambridge, and he is the most important bioinformatician of genetic studies in the world. So anyone wants to analyze data of genetics, of disease, he is the go-to. He's the gold standard. And I remember him coming into my office, not knowing what a gene was, as Vincent didn't know, as I really didn't know at the time too. Look what he's achieved. I think we should a round of applause for him. first degree was sports science. He runs the genomic studies around the world. Funded a lot of money, etc., etc. I think he's got an H index well above mine, somewhere in the 100, okay, plus. And then I'd be remiss of me not to mention, it's already been mentioned by Vincent, Professor Mike Boyd. Again, probably without his motivation, him holding Vincent's hand and bringing him to Glasgow, none of what I'm going to tell you today would have happened. He had the vision, he had the interest, he wanted sports science to really develop. And he actually came a number of times to Glasgow, where we also awarded him, given his significant role, we awarded him an honorary doctorate at the University of Glasgow. I don't know if you know that, but that was a really big thing for him and big for us as well. We were very, very excited about that. Yeah. And again, this is a photograph of all those experts that came to that event, and you can see there's Vincent in the front there and Robert Scott, like two little boys, okay? They were two young boys, they really were, okay? And picture's not that clear, but the people that are there are listed here. I don't have time, I'll spend 4 hours doing this talk. But these are the biggest names in the world. There's Tim Noakes, there's John Hoberman, there's John Bale, there's Hugh Montgomery, Henrik Larsson. Everyone is there. Brother Column, which we'll talk about briefly. Everyone came to this meeting. This was 6 months after that email. And then, this was too good to stop at that point. So we decided, everyone in the room who had actually attended that event, we were going to write a book, which became really popular in the field, edited by myself, John Bale, Craig Sharp, and Timothy Noakes. These, again, the founders of sports science, also in the UK and beyond. And you can see here, listed here, are the reasons that was coming out of those presentations and some of the data that Vincent was presenting. Because I must say, at that point, the only groups collecting data were really our group with Vincent and also the Scandinavians from the work that they'd already completed, that I've already shown you. And you can see here, and this will be, because I'll go very quickly because of time, these also emerged from the work Vincent did, and I'll show you how we worked in all of these areas. And at that point, if you look at the one just before the end, not the one on genetics, one just above, we talk about non-scientific approach, not relying on drugs or technology, but on natural instincts. There's a bit of a gray area. We'll talk about that later. So I've already done the poll, okay? I think in this room we were about half-half, okay? So I'm not going to do it again. But let me tell you where the work, what we found, doing the best we could do with the technologies available up until 3 years ago. And I'm not going to go through all these papers, but we studied both the Kenyan, the Ethiopian, the Jamaican, the West African sprint phenomena as well. And the conclusion from all of this was that it was not genetics. The phenomenon was not down to genetics. So those of you put your hand up for environmental factors, here in the front row, thank you very much, because we showed it wasn't genetics. Oh, it's not working. Okay, is that better? Yes, thank you. So we showed that it wasn't genetics. But this is where a lot of journalists got it wrong. A lot of journalists got it wrong because when we wrote with Vincent, and we'll see some of the papers, that this phenomenon is not genetics, a famous popular book by Matthew Syed called Bounce. Some of you may have read this book called Bounce. He was a Times writer. He got $1 million to write this book, a commission. He said, based on the work that we did, genes aren't important. That was not what I'm saying. So just for the students in the room, to make it absolutely sure, I want you to just look at what's bold there. This paper we published sometime afterwards. And I'll just read that because I don't want you to get the wrong impression. Performances in sport where physical prowess is important, like endurance sports, marathon running, middle distance running, or sprinting, or many, many sports, The way you choose your parents is vitally important. Genetics is important, but it's not linked to your color of your skin. And you can see the conclusion. Despite this complexity, the overwhelming and accumulating evidence amounted through experimental research spanning almost 2 centuries, so 2 centuries, not decades, tips the balance in favor of nature in the nature and nurture debate. In other words, and this is the punchline, I want you all to remember, especially the students, truly elite level athletes are built, but only from those born with innate ability. And by the way, if you want to be a violinist, if you want to be good at, you want to be exceptional at something, typically the same applies. And I know because football is one of the popular sports in Kenya, skill, take skill, which is something a lot of our PE and sports scientists will be interested in. Is skill genetic? Well, I'll help you. And again, part of our team, I'm not going to present those studies because of time, but the heritable or the genetic component of skill is 70%. So that is why not all the kids playing in the favelas in Brazil are going to become Messi. Not all the Portuguese football players will become a Ronaldo. And 2 days before I left Hong Kong, we had one of the world's experts on expert practice, Mark Williams, who's trained in the group by Anders Ericsson, the 10,000-hour rule, remember that? Well, that rule does not apply, it's a myth. Top individuals at something exceptional are made from those with genetic talent. That is one of the conclusions of my talk today. So, going back to the book, and we're going to break some of these down to show you what we did. So, we can put aside superior genetics. It does not mean our genetic work is over, because what the Kenyan phenomenon allows us to do, and that's partly what we're going to move on and do, and I'm pleased this morning I met the person in charge of the ethics committee at your university, Vincent, because I've already prepared our big next approach, which is not to use a handful of genetic markers, but to sequence the entire genome of all the individuals we collect, using the very best technology that's used for cancer research, etc. We're going to use the same level of technology and AI and measurement of the phenotype that you would expect for a clinical study. That is what we're going to do. It's going to cost millions of dollars, but that is what we're going to do. Are you up to it? I hope so. Okay. So, and actually, why am I from Hong Kong coming to Kenya to propose the study? Why don't I do it in Hong Kong? We have 7 million people living in Hong Kong. China has one of the second biggest population in the world. What's unique about Kenya? What's unique about Ethiopia? What's unique about Jamaica? In a small geographical area, you have a very large number of athletes. You can do the study much quicker. So why haven't you, Professor Onyewera, why haven't you, professors in the room, taken advantage of this heritage you have? The clinical study should be done here because you have this unique outcome, environmentally induced. Those of you go to Eldoret, to any coffee shop, the chances are you'll find an Olympian in the coffee shop because of the great number of individuals. And what makes Kenya even more exciting than maybe other countries is you also excel in sports required anaerobic power. Because the big conundrum in genetics, and my wife works in cancer genetics, is what do you compare your athletes to? Do you compare to the general population? When some individuals in the general population could also become athletes, you just don't know who they are. But you have the opposite phenotype, Kenyan rugby, for example. These are completely different individuals. An excellent comparison. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about what we're doing next, because that's what the team is going to be discussing in the next days. But you can see this notion of solid foundation built over many years of running to school. And there's a young Vincent. That actually is the first paper he published. And you can see 2006. And you can see what he found. And I'm sure Vincent can do a better job presenting this data. K and C represents the Kenyan control and the Kenyan census of the time that we had. N is national athletes, and I are what we call the living legends. These guys who are all the big names of Kenyan running. And you can see, if you look at N and I, you can see their main makeup is the Rift Valley province. Not anyone in Kenya can make it. You have to particularly be from the Rift Valley province. That is what he showed. He also, and remember, at that time, none of this existed. And this would not exist if it wasn't for Vincent. We went on to understand, well, okay, what was the tribal makeup? And you can see there almost 80% were Kalenjin. And in particular, as we'd expect, 50% were the Nandi running tribe. Again, journalists had probably guessed this, but this was the first time this was documented in the scientific literature. This was the really exciting bit. And then I don't know if you remember this day, Vincent. This was a very special day for me because I just received a message from Ben Saltine's group that they didn't believe this running to school hypothesis. They thought this was nonsense, and they kept on referring to athletes who lived next to the school. They lived next to the school, they didn't run any kilometers to school, and they became world beaters. That means that this running to school is a red herring, it's not the truth. But Vincent and I and the team in the mountains in the Rift Valley, every day for as far as the eye could see, would see the same thing that you probably know well. Everyone is running to school. And so we stopped a group of kids, because I was fed up that day, and I hope this works, because listen what happened.
Why? You are late. Yes. Why are you late? Because we don't have.
Why are you late?
You prepared some food? Yes.
You prepared some food?
Was food ready or you go and...
They had to go back to school and back home. They've eaten ugali.
All right, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us right here on KUTV Rise Today, Biashara Tuesday. And right now, I want us to take a look at apologies for that. Welcome back, and we are seated. We are about to get down on discussion State of the Nation, and of course this is in relation to the news headlines that we are having at the moment in the country. And helping us understand this discussion is very own Ojwang Mariam and of course Blue Ismail Hassan. Karibuni sana to our studios this morning, and I just want us to get directly into this discussion. I don't know if we should begin with the bold newspaper, or we should begin with let's begin with what is currently what everyone is talking about at the moment, and that is on the Standard, where the Standard are calling it a hot takeover. Let me confirm with the Daily Nation what they are calling it. The Daily Nation are calling it Nairobi Hospital Crisis, Arrest Raids and Letter to the President. They're also talking of hospitals official deny charges released on 5 million bond. From where I see it, gentlemen, I see it as a non-political issue that is politicized. What do you think from your side? Let me begin with you.
Asante sana. Kwa mara nyingine nimepata fursa hii ya kuzungumzia masuala yanayokumba taifa letu. Niingie kwa mada kwamba kuna swala la Nairobi Hospital. Ni hospitali ya kibinafsi ambayo imekuwa na mchecheto mwingi, hasa kutokana na semi za upinzani na semi za wale madaktari ama ile bodi ambayo inamiliki hospitali hii, na kumekuwa na sintofahamu nyingi kwa sababu kila mtu anasema kwake. Upinzani unasema haya na ile bodi inasema hivi, na pia taarifa kutoka kwa rais jana ilijaribu kufafanua kwa undani. Labda niingie katika swala hili kwa kina, ni kwamba haieleweki iwapo ni hostile takeover jinsi standard inavyosema, ama ni mojawapo ya njia ya serikali kuhakikisha kwamba haki katika hospitali hii inafanyika, kwa sababu ni ukweli kwamba kumekuwa na vitu ambavyo haviridhishi. Kumekuwa na tetesi, kumekuwa na kwamba hospitali hii haifanyi vyema, na ile barua ambayo viongozi hawa hii hospitali ama wamiliki hospitali walipeleka kwa rais wakimwomba rais aweze kuingilia kati, ndiposa kulingana ile taarifa ya rais kwamba rais aliweza kumwagiza mkuu wa wafanyikazi wa umma, tena vile vile akaweza kuagiza mamlaka upelelezi wa jinai iweze kupeleleza hospitali hii. Na kuna baadhi ya vitu ambavyo viliweza kupatikana kwamba hata wale waongozi wa hospitali hii waliweza basi kulipa, inakisiwa kwamba waliweza kulipa kiasi cha milioni 5 ili kuweza kuwaandikisha wanachama wapya bila hata vetting ifanyike pale. Kwa hivyo kuna ukweli katika ile semi ama ile taarifa ya rais kwamba kumekuwa na hitilafu ya utendekazi katika hospitali ile, lakini si hivyo tu, kwamba kuna watu ambao wameshikwa na pia wamekataa mashtaka yao. Na hii inaonyesha kwamba japokuwa kwamba kuna hizi watu wanasema kwamba huenda serikali imeingiza mkono katika sekta binafsi, lakini ipo dhahiri kwamba kuna hali ambayo si shwari katika hospitali hii, na kuna watu ambao wamekuwa wakitumia vibaya nyadhifa zao, na kuna vitu vibaya ambavyo vimetendeka katika hospitali hii ambavyo ni serikali inaingilia kati. Na jambo hapo si kwamba serikali inavyofanya ni kibaya, ni kama ni haki kwamba serikali inaweza ingia katika biashara binafsi. Hilo ndo swali, na iwapo serikali kupitia rais imeingilia, kwa sababu wanasema kwamba rais ndio mlezi wa ile bodi ya wamiliki kama patron. Kwa hivyo ameingia pale kama patron, kama rais, ndio maana anatumia nguvu na za kirais, nguvu za serikali, nguvu za dola kuweza kufanya uchunguzi katika hospitali hii, ama ni jambo ambalo limefika kwamba wangetumia namna nyingine, wasitumie nguvu za dola. Kwa lakini jambo ambalo liko sahihi, ambalo liko dhahiri kwamba kuna uozo ambao uko katika hospitali hii, lakini swali ni rais alifaa kuingilia kati? Hilo ndo swali.
Listening to Blue Smile, I can tell that there are a lot to this story that Kenyans may seem confused about how President Ruto is coming in all this story. First of all, Nairobi Hospital has been in existence for over 70 years, and they are saying that the hospital is now declining. Its operations are declining, and they were looking for help for a person they are calling patron of Kenya Hospitals Association. There are some titles that maybe we didn't know about people. Some of us knew that President Ruto is also Dr. Bill, but we never knew that somewhere he's representing the hospitals in that capacity. But it is not only in that capacity that he's influencing things, as the Nairobi Hospital are calling for help. And that is what is raising all this fracas. One, he wants 3 board of directors who are his own loyalists in this board. And they wrote a letter, according to the former National Assembly Speaker, 2-time Justin Muturi, who is also party leader for DP, on 7th March 2026. He wrote to the board, to Dr. Job Obwaka, asking that these 3 people, kukuwe na vacancy, kuwe created so that they get in. And they are saying this is a hostile takeover. We asked for help, yes, but the only way you can help is not you taking over this hospital. You are a president. They are accusing that chairperson of board of director, Dr. Job Obwaka, one of their accusations is conflicts of interests. And they are asking, if you're talking about conflicts of interests, how are you a president, a patron of Kenya Hospital Association, and again, the owner of this major hospital? How then are we talking about PPP if even the private part is also being controlled by the public part? You're calling it private because it is William Ruto, and when it is public, it is because it is the state of Kenya, which is not good, because we need to have protection of everyone. For example, that chairperson is 80 years old and he is a heart patient. Apart from being a doctor and professor, he is a heart patient. And they were detained for over 30 hours. This Constitution of Kenya, in the Chapter 4 Bill of Rights, talks about rights that cannot be infringed at all. For example, you cannot torture someone, you cannot detain someone. There was a court order that had been given by Kenya judiciary last year talking about that they should not be arrested. When they are being arrested and not being presented to a court of law, it downs now to us who don't have such power maybe to ask ourselves, na hiyo gava ikinishika mimi itafanya nini? So if kulikuwa na will ya kuongeza uoga kwa hawa wenye ni wakubwa kwa Nairobi Hospital, then huo uoga utatoka hapo wingi hadi wa Kenya kwa jumla waanze kusema, hey, ni kama hadi 2027 we cannot win that election. That president is everywhere. It is not good. We should have more courage and power to condemn it.
But you see, Ojong, for this case, as the president says, he's not like he wanted it.
He was forced. He was called to give help.
He was approached to give help, and any person, you cannot be a patron of a failing party. You cannot be a patron of, a failing team. It's not. You don't take pride in it.
If we allow that to happen, this is what will happen. You've seen in African families where a preacher comes and apikiwa kuku. So if we allow that the presidency has this power, everything ikiharibika anakuja anaingilia, then tomorrow wale wamama wenye wanakosa kupata watoto, bwana zao bado watajipata wapi? Ni tuite huyu kiongozi, huyu ni kama ndio anaweza. Will we allow that? Because hapo ndio tunaendelea. Walisema kuhusu ngamia, iliingisha tu kichwa kiasi iko hapo mwili mzima. Tunaongelea kuhusu biashara ya mtu kama former minister of foreign affairs Raphael Tuju. Biashara yake pia ilipata hamngam. Who is helping behind the scene? The State House and Harambee House. Tukitoka hapo hivyo tuingie mambo ya KPC, Kenya Pipeline Company, and the selling of the IPOs. Who is buying behind the scene? The same person. Iya tukatai ni rais na anafaa kuwa na suluhu, lakini suluhu si ya bebe kila kitu. Suluhu ni yatengeneze.
So the fear with this, according to you, is that it may not turn out as planned. It may turn out as ownership.
The Bold newspaper are calling it a hostile takeover.
But speaking according to law, the president cannot really own the hospital because the hospital is owned by is it Kenya Hospitals what? And it is not owned in share. The hospital is not owned in shares basis. The hospital is owned by the Kenya Hospital Association.
Who is the patron of Kenya Hospitals Association?
He is the patron, but then again, the hospital does not operate on shares. It just operates on, so it's not like you can own part of it. It's like it's owned by the company. So unless you're taking over the company, the association as a whole, that's when you will be termed as someone who is now changing ownership of the company. Look at it from this perspective. This is something that all presidents since the time of Moi, Kibaki, all of them have been patrons of these hospitals. So why Ruto now? Why all this standing on Ruto right now?
Because for the very first time, we are hearing of a Nairobi hospital that is being controlled by board of directors who are being appointed by the president. That is not what happens. Him as a patron should always remain non-partisan because his goodwill and goals should be to help the hospital, not to take over the hospital. If it works like a duck,
Okay. Please, will you share the sentiment?
Naona kwamba kwa swala hili japokuwa kwamba sura rais ilionekana karibia kwa kila jambo inavyoonekana, lakini unajua rais pia ni mwanabiashara, lakini ningependa tu angalie sana swala hili la Nairobi. Ni kweli unajua ingekuwa kwamba hii board of directors ama wakurugenzi wangekuwa wanafanya kazi yao, ingekuwa basi Nairobi Hospital iko pale kidedea juu kama ilivyokuwa awali, tungekuwa basi tunasema basi rais kweli mbona unataka kuchukua. Lakini hali ya Nairobi Hospital sasa hii, liwe la Muturi liwe la Gachagua, hali ya Nairobi Hospital sasa hii ni mbaya, ni hali tete. Hata ukiangalia ule uchunguzi ambao ulipatikana na jamaa hawajakataa uchunguzi kwamba mambo haya hayakufanyika. Hata ule uchaguzi uliofanyika tayari kulikuwa na watu wengi ambao waliletwa pale ambao hawakuwa washirika wa ile association, na walipiga kura, walipewa membership yao kwa njia ambayo si halali. Hii inaonyesha kwamba hata huyu mkuu ambaye sasa hii yuko kotini tayari akuna njia fiche ambazo amekuwa akitumia, amekuwa na jaribu kukwamilia uongozi. Mbona ukwamilie uongozi na watu? Kwa hivyo ingekuwa kwamba anafanya kitu kizuri na watu wanampenda kweli na jambo ambalo anafanya ni zuri, hangejaribu rig hii election ama kujaribu kuiba uchaguzi huu kupitia njia ambayo si halali. Kwa hivyo inamaanisha kwamba huu ni uozo ambao umekuwa, na kuna watu ambao wanajaribu katika ile hali ya kwamba Nairobi Hospital ni mbaya, haifanyi vizuri, kuna watu ambao wanafaidi, ndio maana wanangangana kukwamilia uongozi. Maneno kwamba kuna watu ambao wanajaribu kuingizwa katika ile board, huenda kwamba ni tetesi tu. Unajua kwamba siku zote mtu kama anaanguka atajaribu kusema mguu wangu ni mbaya, kiatu changu ni kibaya, ni kujaribu tu kujaribu kujustify kile ambacho anafanya. Kwa hivyo kuna tetesi na jambo la upinzani, huenda kwamba tetesi hizi za ukweli, lakini upinzani nao una tabia kwamba kila asubuhi, kila uchao lina neno ambalo linasema ambalo kuhusu, ni tetesi wanatoa kuhusu Rais Ruto, kila kitu kuhusu Rais Ruto. Kwa hivyo imefika pahali ambapo hatuelewi kama tetesi za ukweli ama ni tetesi tu za kuchafulia Rais Ruto jina, kwa sababu wamezoea tu kila siku lazima waseme Rais Ruto. Hii ukisikiza labda hotuba ya Rigathi Gachagua utasikia kila siku anasema hili kuhusu Rais Ruto. Huyu Muturi pia anasema hili kuhusu Rais Ruto. Lakini hapa ni wakati ambapo tuache kuangalia tetesi za watu ambao wanaongea, tuangalie uchunguzi unasemaje. Uchunguzi ulifanyika kweli? Haya ndio matokeo ya uchunguzi huu unasemaje? Je, ni kweli kwamba hawa jamaa walifanya hili baya? Kama walifanya baya, tuache siasa zetu nyingi, tuangalie tuseme basi kama ni baya basi wapelekwe kotini kama walivyopelekwa. Lakini lazima niseme kwamba kile ambacho ninakataa na nasema kwamba ni jambo baya ni kwamba hawa, licha kuwa hawa ni washukiwa, kuwekwa kwenye gari, kuwekwa kwenye buchi ya gari kwa zaidi ya masaa 6, hilo si jambo zuri. Kwa hivyo ni jambo ambalo lazima pia, as much as tunataka haki tendeke na Nairobi Hospital haki tendeke, ikuwe revamped, vitu viwe vizuri, lakini tuangalie pia our justice system kwamba mtu amewekwa kwa gari, buchi ya gari masaa 6 na ni mgonjwa, hilo si jambo zuri.
All right, now that we are talking about rights, a similar story is on the Daily Nation, page 2. They're talking of rights agency starts identifying victims of police brutality, and this is in relation to the famous 10-point agenda that stipulates that victims of police brutality should be compensated. Over the past few weeks, we've had different factions and everyone with different opinions in relation to the 10-point agenda. There are those who are saying that compensation, I'm trying to quote Wiper Party leader, where he's saying that no life of Kenyan can be quantified in a certain amount of money, and they're demanding that the police who were responsible for this, they should be castigated, they should be reprimanded, or they should be taken to court. And now this is shifting conversations, just like you said, that the opposition is always finding fault in everything. The other day, the president and the CEO, the leader of the 10-point agenda committee, said that this is a continuous process that does not have a deadline. Do you think that what the opposition is saying, that no Kenyan life can be quantified, is something valid, or any propaganda meant to, make this conversation relevant? Right now we're in a political space where everyone wants to find relevance. So in as much as the government says that we are doing something, but then the opposition tries to find fault. I heard someone say that this government, yes, the government is what the government is doing is a drop in the ocean, but I don't want to look at it as a drop in the ocean. I want to look at it like at least it's a drop. At least there is effort in that. So what do you think? Let me begin with you, Bluesman, now that you are on it, about this move to begin the compensation, and the period is between 2017 and 2025.
Niseme kwamba kile ambacho serikali inajaribu kufanya ni jambo kubwa sana, kwa sababu katika serikali zote ambazo zimepita tumeona kwamba ni ngumu swala la compensation. Hata ukiangalia swala la clashes za 207, kuna bado hata watu leo hii wanasema kwamba compensation haikufanywa, ilifanywa kwa njia ambayo si halali. Ukiangalia pia compensation za Wagala, ukiangalia compensation za Mau Forest, pia ni compensation, ni jambo ambalo tusiangalie tu na macho ya sasa, tuangalie na macho ya jinsi compensation katika nchi hizi zimekuwa zikifanywa. Si jambo rahisi. Kuna njia ambapo kuna conflict of conflict between, sitaki kwamba conflict of interest, lakini kuna conflict of who is supposed to be in charge of hii compensation. Tukiangalia kwamba kuna Kenya National Human Rights Commission ambayo katiba inasema kwamba hii compensation inafaa ifanyike, hizo mambo ya fidia, hiyo ndio inafaa ishughulikie fidia zote. Alafu kuna hii 10 point hiyo ya broad based. Sasa hiyo kamati ya broad based ambayo inaangalia 10 point agenda ambayo ilipewa mamlaka hii kutokana na presidential decree. Alafu watu wakaenda kotini. Watu walipoenda kotini ikasemekana kwamba mambo ya fidia yaregeshwe kwa commission ya Kenya National Human Rights Commission. Sasa hii bodi ambayo ilitengenezwa na Ruto na Raila imekuwa kama overseer, inakuwa kama inahakikisha. Kwa hivyo imenyimwa ile nguvu ya kufanya ya kutenda kazi hii. Siwezi sema kwamba ni upinzani ambao ilifanya kazi hii, labda hata ni serikali ndio ilienda kotini ihakikishe kwamba pesa zitumiki. Unajua serikali na siasa za Kenya huwezi jua, lakini ni watu wanaenda kotini, na kuna watu hii nchi hii ambao kazi yao ni kwenda tu kotini, wanangoja tu waende kotini wasimamishe jambo. Sijui kwa ile ripoti ya NATO walisema kwamba ili maafisa wa IBC wasipelekwe, walikuwa wanamlaumu Kalonzo kwa kupeleka watu kotini. Sasa hii sijui kama watamlaumu Kalonzo ama watalaumu nani, lakini cha msingi ni kwamba jambo lolote likifanyika nchi hii lazima lipeleke kotini. Sijui kama kuna faida ya watu kupeleka kesi kotini, lakini wanajua hao. Tukiangalia swala hili la compensation, ni kwa mara ya kwanza victims wote wa protest kutokea protest za Raila Odinga paka sasa ya Gen Z wanajaribu kukompensetiwa. Kwa hivyo ni hela refu sana, na ni jambo ambalo kusema ukweli haliwezi fanyika na kipindi cha ile miezi ambao walikuwa wamepeana, kwa sababu ni lazima compensation ni process. Lazima wa identify victims, waangalie wa verify wa vet, alafu waangalie njia ambao watawalipa. Na jambo ambalo lilifaa kusikia katika ile report ya Zani, wangesema kwamba wame-identify hawa watu wamemaliza, hasa ni bado ya vetting. Wangetuambia zile stages za process, ile stages wamefikia wapi, lakini hawakutuambia wamefikia wapi. Wangesema kwamba ni sawa hatujafika hiyo nini, lakini tume-identify victims wote, sasa tu wako katika data zetu. Hiyo ilingekuwa, mimi kama Mkenya ningefurahia kusikia. Lakini mambo mengine kusema kweli, lakini ile muda ambao ulipewa, hakuna jinsi ambavyo wangeweza kuwa wamecompensate. Kumbuka si hii 10 point agenda si kucompensate peke yake. Kuna vitu vingi ambavyo walikuwa wanafanya na vyote hawajaweza kufanya kwa sababu muda ni mchache. Na wao kujaribu kujitetea kwamba hakuna timeline, lazima kuwe na timeline kusema kweli. Kwa sababu baada ya 2027 wanasema hakuna timeline, havitafanyika. Kwa hivyo wanaweza keti. Timeline ni kitu ambacho kinafanya mtu afanye kazi. Kwa hivyo niseme tu kwa ile njia kwamba naelewa kwamba muda huu ulikuwa mchache, lakini vitu vifanyike. Hata kama by 2027 tuseme watu fulani wamelipwa, hawa wengine hawajalipwa, lakini tuone progress. Lakini kusema kwamba hakufai kuwa na timeline, huo ni uongo.
Whatever the government is doing right now is enshrined in this constitution and should just follow that constitution and should just be done. First of all, the constitution guarantees everyone right to life, and it is not upon the state to guard that. It is inherently, the constitution says that it is a must for you to have it. So when that life has been snatched away from you, we got to establish a TJRC, Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission, to look into some cases of where people have lost lives, the mass murders, or called something like that. And the flaws that were in TJRC, one of them was that we are having truth, but we cannot achieve reconciliation where there is no justice. What is justice according to them? Justice may not come from compensation alone. Look at the case of people like Albert Ojwang. Their family had received around 3 million from the president himself. But did they feel like justice was done? No. Why? Because the perpetrators and the killers are still walking free. So when we come to such things, then going to 2017 and saying that we will compensate victims of police brutality from 2017 to 2025 without a timeline, then it clearly shows that this is another part of Stories Ajaba, because you cannot ask questions of accountability like, how many people have you compensated so far? The whole issue of compensation was in and around the NADCO report. That was pre-Baba. When I say pre-Baba, it means it was before October 2025. To date, we do not know a case of anyone who has been compensated. But we know a case of a VC or vice chair of that commission who has resigned. We used to have the former LSK boss Faith Odhiambo in this committee for compensation. She had to get out of that committee when she saw that everything is stalling, nothing is happening. Now, 1 year later, the NADCO report has gone away and they've fashioned it to a 10-point agenda. We will hear stories if we don't have a timeline. We will hear stories if we don't see people who have been compensated. And remember, we are still having victims of police brutality year in, year out, including now. Including now. And they are not in that database. But we have a database yenye inaweza angaliwa, unaweza tumia hata 1 month. Waseme hii 1 month kama ni project management, tunatumia kuangalia database ya kila mtu ambaye aliweza kuwa recorded kama victim of police brutality. And then waseme hii miezi mingine 3 ni kulipa bunch ya kwanza. Vile huwa wanasema time wanataka kuachilia pesa za floods na vitu kama hiyo. Within 1 year they can complete everything when it comes to matters compensation. But they do not want to do that because it is a campaign strategy too. If you had a family member who is affected by police brutality, utaanza sasa hapo hivyo kuambia ni kama tunahitaji kuweka tutam ndo hii kesi yetu isukumwe tupate doze yetu juu ule alienda.
All right, that's a narrative that I've seen happening in the countries for a very long time, where a leader has a project that is supposed to be taking around 6 months, then the project is stalled until the next election. If not re-elected, the project inaishia hapo, and that is a loss. All right, now let's move on to the Daily Nation. I don't know if our country is nimbaya hivi, but
nimbaya weka mawe.
But seeing negative headlines every day is really disturbing. But now that we have it, so it is they're talking of 2.1 billion schools bursary scandal, and they're saying that some constituencies were unable to account for 2.1 billion in school bursary awards for 1 year following an audit that found the scheme riddled with irregularities. The audit exports favorism and political patronage in the allocation of the funds, locking out bright but needy students. And there are several faces that are shown there of different leaders and giving different opinions on what transpired in different constituencies in different schools. But based on this report on the Daily Nation, according to Gadungu, she says that most schools or most leaders are running the NGCDF as political handouts, and most of them are using it for political gain. And she has listed several irregularities, including that some people or some beneficiaries are not vetted. If there's background check done, some of them are found not to have been vetted. Some of them are found to be given to, you know, relatives and all that. And just like someone once told me that corruption, nepotism and all that is only bad if you're not involved, and that the early bird does not catch the worm. The bird with the connection is the one who is given the worm, not even catching the worm. So what do you think about all this, where there are so many issues in today's newspapers that are politicized in the country? But let's talk about the education sector. Ojwang have been so loud on goodwill and saying that if all these funds could be put together and in a consolidated fund where education is made free for all Kenyans, rather than dishing out all this. Now that you are an upcoming member of parliament, what do you think of the NGCDF? Because this is something that is fully supported or majorly supported by members of parliament.
NGCDF has been fought time and again, and NGCDF is not something that is bad. What we call evil is something that they call bursary, that you can use 2.1 billion and call it school bursary, but it benefits everyone except that student who is in school. Coming from the ghetto, I've been a victim of inequality when it comes to accessing quality education, because bursaries, if they are given by a member of parliament, they are given to loyalists. If you cannot sing me 2 term, there's no bursary for you. Yet, every school has a budget that is entitled to a school capitation to run the budget. Instead of having 2.1 billion scandals, we can channel all this cash to one ministry. I keep saying this. Goodwill and lack of it. Where does it come in? When we are having an MP like from Ganze, Kenneth Kazungu, awarding 566 cases multiple times, why is goodwill there? Why is empowering and educating our children? All these things happen because of us Kenyans. We are so afraid. We live more in fear than love. We have the fear of our children will not school instead of love of taking our children to school. So we give everything and every power to these MPs. And we are so afraid we cannot confront them and ask them, why are you stealing our money? Kenyans feel like it's not their money. When you mention $1 billion in the ghetto, they know that is not their money. It doesn't concern them. Because even 10K, it's a problem for them. But they should have more civic education to remind them that this is their money. And that money that has gone, for example, you hear that there's a special bursary that is issued to learners without filling applications. They just dished out. Wewe kama Mkenya ndio unafaa unaingia hapo hivyo. Ikiwezekana tuko na right to recall. Na right to recall juu ni kama haiwork siku hizi. Maandamano ni language huwa inasikika. We are supposed to come in those ministries and ask them why. But sasa shida yetu ni tunapigaga kelele, alafu tukifika election cycle tunafanya same mistake. Goodwill Kenyans, start with us. Kwa nini tunakubaligi kuibiwa? 2.1 billion ni mingi sana za kukubali hawa na siasa waibe zote kuliko watoto wetu wasome. We can do better.
Someone say that hiyo ni shida ya kuchagua celebrities and influencers.
Lakini kuna maselebu wanafanya, mimi celeb nataka kusimama, nataka kuingia. Tumewaona maselebu wenye wameingia na wakafanya kitu cha maana. Angalia Embakasi East. Kuna mbunge mwenye ni celeb kutoka akiwa kampo, anafanya kitu. Kuna mwingine amekuwa celeb juu kila every other free time ako kampo akisomea mambo ya economy. Anaitwa Ndindinyoro kutoka Kiharu. We have celebs who can work. Shida yetu ni celeb wewe unaangaliaga tu jina ufanye kitu. Angalia vitu alanga Lang'ata vile wanaumia saa hii.
I'm not talking about celebrities people who have been in leadership from the beginning. I'm talking about I will not mention the name. Yeah. There is someone also who has come very strong. Anasema anataka kuwa kiongozi and he will champion the rights of, you know, the creative economy and all that. So that's a problem that we are going to be making as a nation. And also, there's also an outbreak of, let me not say an outbreak, but in your circle, there's someone who wrote that my classmates wangu sasa wanataka kuwa ma MCA. So okay, everyone wants to be in parliament or to be a leader, but then we forget how to vet them. We were talking on the NDCDF fund. Let me get your sentiments on the same.
Shida ya Kenya ni kwamba kila mtu anataka kula. Shida ya Kenya ni kwamba kila pahali kuna wizi. Shida ya Kenya ni kwamba si magatuzini, si katika serikali kuu, si katika maeneo bunge, kila pahali uporaji upo. Ukiangalia magazetini, kama wewe ni mgeni Kenya, huenda ukadhani kwamba taifa hili linachomeka, kwamba taifa hili lote linafaa lifungwe, watu warudi watafute taifa lingine. Lakini sisi wenyeji wa Kenya tumezoea hali hii. Lakini swali ni, tunafaa tuzoee ama tunafaa tubadili mienendo hii? Kwa sababu kuna niki grow up ama nikikua, nilikuwa nasikia watu wakiongelea ufisadi. Kwa mantiki waliokuwa wakiongelea ufisadi, walikuwa wanaongelea ufisadi kwa njia ya kujivunia kwamba ufisadi upo, kwa sababu ni njia moja wapo ya kupenya na kuwa tajiri. Kwa sababu ukiangalia si viongozi, karibu kila kiongozi nchini hii ama katika nchi hii anatafuta njia ya kutengeza pesa zaidi. Wale ambao wanaingia katika uongozi, hawaingii katika uongozi kwa sababu wana haja ya kubadilisha maisha wa Kenya. Hawaingii katika uongozi kwa sababu kuna shida katika nchi hii ambao wanataka kuibadilisha, bali ni katika azma ya kuongeza size ya mifuko yao. Wale ambao wanaingia katika uongozi, amini usiamini Sylvia, ni kwamba watu wanaingia pale ili waongeze nguvu za biashara zao. Watu wanaingia pale kwa sababu ya tenda, watu wanaingia pale kwa sababu ya sababu zao za kibinafsi. Lakini hakuna mtu ambaye anaingia pale kwa jinsi ambavyo, siseme hakuna kwa sababu ati nawachukia, kwa sababu ya ripoti ambazo zinatolewa na kina Margaret Nyakango na wengineo ambao wanahakikisha kwamba fedha zetu zinaangaliwa kwa macho makavu na hazibwe. Watu wote ambao wanaingia pale, wengi wa watu ambao wanaingia pale wanatafuta tu njia ya kujitajirisha. Leo hii mtoto aliyoko ghetto anakosa basari kama Ojwanga alivyotuambia, lakini mtoto wa milionea anapata basari. Sijui kama unajua kwamba kuna basari inatoka State House. Sijui kama watu wangapi wameipata basari hiyo. Sijui kama watu wanajua kwamba kuna basaries nyingi ambazo zinatoka hata ama funding nyingi, scholarships nyingi zinatoka hata katika embassies. Watu wangapi ambao wanazipata basari hizo ama scholarship hizo? Ni wale walionazo tayari wanapata. Lakini jinsi basari hizi ziliekwa ni kwa sababu zisaidie watu ambao ni walala hoi. Lakini leo hii wale walala hoi wanazidi kulala hoi, lakini walala hai wanazidi kuwa na uhai na wanavuta pumzi na staha nyingi sana kuliko hata wengine wetu. Kwa hivyo alienacho anazidi kutaka kingi, lakini yule ambaye hana tunazidi kumuonia huruma. Kwa hivyo ni taifa ambalo sidhani kama tunafaa tuliolea huruma. Ni taifa ambalo hata katika shimo liliojiweka limejitakia lenyewe, kwa sababu taifa hili lina wapiga kura, na wapiga kura hawa watamwendea mlala hai na wamkumbatie kwa machozi ya furaha, wakimtaka awape pesa ndio wamchague. Mlala hai huyu akirudi pale anataka kurudisha pesa zake, na atazirudisha kwa sababu ndio mwenyekiti. Mwenyekiti huyu akirudisha pesa hizi, sisi tunazidi kulia. Tunasahau kwamba miaka 5 iliyopita sisi walala hoi ndio tulimuendea, tukamuita katika mikutano yetu atupe pesa, tukamuita mheshimiwa, tukamkumbatia, tukamuita wewe ndio utatatua shida zetu, ili hali tunajua kwamba huyu jamaa tunataka tukula pesa zake. Sijui kwa nini Wakenya mara nyingi wanafanya maamuzi haya. Sielewi. Nimejaribu katika miaka yangu katika tasnia ya wanahabari. Nimejaribu kuelewa Wakenya. Hata mimi nimejiweka siku moja niende hata kwa mheshimiwa kama Mkenya. Nianze kuelewa ile psychology ya mpiga kura, lakini ni ngumu. Kwa sababu dakika moja nimalizie. Dakika moja Mkenya huyu atasema nataka Ndindi Nyoro. Dakika pili Mkenya huyu atasema nataka Ruto. Dakika pili, dakika tatu atasema nataka Rigathi Gachagua. Ni huyu Mkenya mmoja huelewi anataka nini. Naam.
I think the problem is poverty. Poverty is the enemy, because if you see anyone who is I don't want to use that word. I don't find.
I wouldn't call poverty an enemy anymore. The more we keep being educated, the more we understand that poverty is not the enemy. Poverty is a weapon, and they always use it against us. If poverty was an enemy, then all of us as Kenyans who are poor, we would be able to unite and fight against it. But we keep embracing it because it is a weapon fashioned against us.
That's why last week I was saying that there is no government that benefits from empowering its people. And that's why Iran, as they were doing, that is in history, as they were doing their civic education, they would do chemistry, English and all that, but never doing political education, because that is empowering people against the monarchy. But that's a story for another day. Now we have less than 5 minutes, and I'm saying that we should talk about how to end this poverty, but then it's getting out of hand. Recently we've had complaints of parents complaining of high school fees, but then right now this is the Standard. They're talking of parents decrying rising education costs due to illegal school levies. This is something that all of us have experienced. Pesa ya walimu, pesa ya sijui school, remedial, pesa ya motivation. I'm a teacher, of course motivation matters, but then but then if, from a parent's perspective, there are those who are complaining of up to miscellaneous of up to 27,000 Kenyan shillings. And just to mention, someone mentioned additional of 10,000 for dormitory facilities, 5,000 for remedial lessons, 3,000 for school transport, 2,000 for teacher motivation. You've not added student motivation, because as you perform well, you get gifts. Wewe unalipa 2,000 every term, but you never get even a pencil. It's only given to position one. That thing used to anger me, because we used to pay, I think, 3,000 every term, and it's only one person, my bedmate, could get laptops every term, and you never get anything. So I want you to, as we bring this to an end in a minute or so, your sentiments on how we can really serve our education systems, because in as much as we blame the teachers in schools for imposing all this, there's also, if you've ever been close to a school head, you will understand how they operate in terms of sijalipa walimu, sijalipa sijui nini, and all that. So how do we maintain students in school, not sending them at home, in a government where capitation is kind of a problem, and there's also the issue of bursaries and all that, and the public believing that education is free when there's indeed no money in school. Let me begin from it.
Nimeshtuka kwamba shule uliyosoma watu walikuwa wanapewa laptop. Ningekuwa huko ningefanya bidii. Huenda ningekuwa, lakini tukiangalia swala hili ni kwamba kama nilivyosema awali kwamba kila pahali kila mtu anajaribu kutafuta pesa zaidi. Na hata shuleni nao wanajaribu kutafuta njia ya kutafuta pesa zaidi, kwa sababu kama ni laptop ni karibu watu 1,000 wanatoa 3,000 hizi, na alafu laptop haifiki hiyo bei yote, ama ni watu 2 watatu wanapata. Hizi pesa zingine zinaenda wapi? Ni swala ambalo nafaa tujiulize. Na hata kwa sababu ukiwa katika ile register shule ni ngumu sana kuuliza maswali haya kama mwanafunzi. Hata wazazi mara zingine wanakosa nguvu ya kuuliza. Lakini ni swala ambalo likizidi sana, ni swala ambalo linafaa liwe policy. Kuwe na policy, kwamba policy formulation kutoka kwa Ministry of Education iweze kupunguza, kwa sababu ni Ministry of Education ndio ina uwezo wa kuingilia kati, itengeze policy ambazo zitakuwa zinamkinga mwanafunzi wa kawaida. wanafunzi wote na kawaida, lakini kuna mwanafunzi tu, imkinge mwanafunzi na mzazi ili asilagaiwe na maafisa ndani ya shule, kwa sababu ni ulagai huu na udanganyifu hali ya juu, kwa sababu kama natoa 3,000 kila mwezi kila tamu, alafu wewe unamaliza miaka yako 4 na hupati hata peremendi hata penseli, ni jambo la kufedhesha. Lakini narudia kwamba ni jambo ambalo linafaa policy, na swala la policy ni katika ile ministry ama wizara ya elimu kusikue tu na stories za watu kwenda graduation. Tusione tu waziri akienda graduation, tumuone waziri akitengeza bills na policy ambazo zitakuwa zinasaidia. Isiwe kwa sababu mimi namjua waziri kutokea shida katika ama kutokea shida katika wizara ya elimu ama katika shule ndio utasikia sauti ya waziri. Lakini masuala kama haya madogo ambao wanafaa wahakikishe kwamba yamefanyika, hatusikii sauti yake. Kwa hivyo Migoso Gamba ashughulikie swala hili.
All right, Ojwang, in a minute 30.
Things are changing and I'm very proud of how things are changing. I've seen, I've heard, I've read about cycles of education systems and how they have been in this country. But one thing has always stood the same, that the roots of education are bitter, the fruits are sweet. Some of us have never tasted the fruits. But we are hopeful that we will get there. What else is changing? Our parents and how they viewed taking care of our education at school is different from how we are viewing it, and it will also be different with the coming up the generation of Gen Z parents. With our parents, we did not complain about school fee and all these things. We just knew that education is costly and expensive, so we just pay. Mzazi anauza ng'ombe, anauza kuku, just pays. Saa hizi we are complaining, tunasema hey, hapa hivi tumeibiwa sana. Na hizi ni vitu zenye sisi wenye tumesoma tumeziona. Kuna remedio after remedio, kuna pesa ingine. Hata sisi tunafika home tunaambia mzazi hii pesa tunaitishwa si nini. So wazazi sasa wenye wanaingia next ni watu kama mimi. Sasa hizi mimi ni mzazi na before nilipe utu vitu wote, yes, at the end of it all nitalipa, but nitakuwa nime plant kasidi pale kakuonyesha huyu mwalimu kesho au kesho kutwa we will revolt. So education pia evolve, that kitambo ilikuwa ni wazazi wanapelekwa kwa chief ndo wakubali watoto wao waende shule. Leo hii kuna mzazi anatoa mtoto wake shule ndo ajisomeshe yeye mwenyewe, na inaitwa homeschooling. So the goal ni watoto wapate education, watapata, na in the future watakuwa kama kuna sector ya presidents wa future hawatakuwa wakiguza ni hii ya education. Za hosi wanaweza beba zote, lakini hii ya education kila mtu atakuwa mwerevu, na wanasema mjinga akierevuka mwerevu anabaki mashakani.
All right, what's a good way to end the show? Mjinga kierevuka, mwerevu wanabaki mashakani. And just like you say that teaching students to hold the administration accountable. I remembered of a time when a whole of our cohort went on strike because we were paying 3,000 for bread and we were only getting a quarter loaf, and then we were asking a quarter loaf ni how much? 3,000 how much? And then it turned out to be a strike. But let's not get into that phase. I hope our leaders and Migos, like you said, gets to address this. So with us in studio this morning was our very own Ojwang Mariam, and Member of Parliament hopeful that is of Kahawa West, and of course with our very own Blue Smile Hassan, kijana barubaru katika ulingo wa siasa. Tutapatane kaunti ya Kilifi
Pwani yote.
Pwani yote. And Anyango, Sylvia, thank you so much for being part of KUTV's Biashara Tuesday on this 17th day of March 2026. See you next week.
Niko juu ya stage, velvet suit na ma Air Force maziwa, nikiwasha moto yuko ngumu kunizima, mzee mzima. Music Schwarzenegger, ikishika sana sema hilo, bring it back, come rewind. Ikishika sana sema hilo, bring it back, come rewind. I am very fly, na si economy manzeni private. Monday mcheki vile nimeweza, you already know.